Deep within a forest with many trees surrounding, many strange voices could be heard. Voice of leaves shaking from the wind, sounds of wild animals, a small sound of water flowing in the distance, and the loudest one of all were Etrat, Etrat. The sound of many creatures with multiple legs chasing a person was heard in the distance. Running with all his might, a man with long glossy black hair and red eyes which shined in the blue moonlight was smiling happily. I got myself in an unexpected mess, but this is fun. I thought back on my visit to this remote forest area with an excited smile. After exiting the sewers, I flew to this nearby forest with the Tier 5 spell, Wind Floating. There wasn't much on the outer regions, so I walked in deeper with some anticipation. But then, something big caught my attention. I accidentally stumbled upon an ogre warrior corpse, a yellow rank mana beast. Not seeing anything wrong, I just stole that from this group of giant spiders. They were special monsters of the night. It was also nighttime, so it was even more advantageous for them. Appraisal. Race. Dead mana spiders. Strength. 51. Dexterity. 48. Stamina. 36. Magic power. 54. Intelligence. 15. Skills. Mana threads. Poison stings. Rot acid. Iron skin. Magic defense. Prying on the mana of dead and carefully preserved creatures. They hunt in groups to increase the odds and hunt strong enemies. And they don't like their food getting stolen. Not by a weakling human at least. They outnumber me by 6:1. There was only one problem in killing them instantly. Though they are only orange rank, they all had a magic defense skill. Direct and weak attacks won't work on them. Either use strong attack magic or play with them thoroughly until they give up on defense and give an opening. I could use a powerful spell, but why would I use too much energy when I could do it in much less? On the bright side, I was having a lot more fun than killing those rats. As for running to the ends of the forest on foot, physical enhancement, a Tier 3 spell to increase the physical stat by 30%. That was enough to outrun these 8-legged insects. Outrunning them, I was able to look around for some useful herbs. I had wandered around for quite a while, but there were not many good things. I did find the two good things. Sanctrin, a mana herb, found in places with a good amount of mana and grown up after a very long time. It can be used in increasing the mana reactivity and mana gathering. It can increase the strength of the enchantment in weapon or armor. It can also increase the MP generation rate by 5% when ingested. But only people with strong mental fortitude could process it. It will be a great conductor for enchanting after a little bit of processing. As for the other thing, it's for me more than him, but it will help him ultimately. Looking at the glowing yellow liquid in the small glass vial in my hand, a big smile appeared on my face. Appraisal. Forest nectar, a great natural treasure for mana recovery. It increases the speed of mana gathering by 45% for 3 hours. Can only be used by someone with high mental fortitude. Though difficult, I was able to get this after much difficulty. I should have just used magic. What was I thinking when I decided to climb that big tree? That's why I am so late. My gosh, just thinking about facing Nolan like this is scary. She knows how much crazy stuff I do when left in the fields alone. But she also understands that there is always a reason behind that. She knows me from inside and out, that's why she is the only one. And even after knowing all that, I definitely know what is going to happen to me when I get back. A cold shiver ran down my spine just thinking about it. I would rather fight an impossible enemy than upset her too much. Then again, what am I without that? And, for Ian to use magic early, I will have to complete the reconstruction of the barrier as quickly as possible. Smiling, I put the small glass bottle inside my pocket. The item box was already full of the dead bodies of the ogre and lizard. Now I had to carry this important thing on hand. The spiders chasing me like to kill large monsters with good mana, melt their insides with their acids, and preserve the bodies to turn the pure mana into dead mana. Seeing me, a mage alone, was maybe the most joyous thing for them. But they made the worst mistake. I stopped and turned around. Smiling, I pointed my hand in their direction. Sorry friends, you wrongly saw your deaths as food. Now go rest in peace. And just as thought, they all jumped in my direction without thinking about anything, desperate to catch the prey. And that was when they really invited their own death. 6 balls of electricity manifested before my hand. 6, Tier 2, spells, Electrosphere. As thunder was a higher version of fire attribute and preparing it required quite a bit of time, I was waiting for them to get frustrated and jump in the air, showing only the defenseless part of the body. The spheres shot forward from my hand and pierced through the spider's body from their backs. Yellow blood blasted at the same time from their body. As if the strings has been cut off, their bodies fell to the ground one by one. Even after death, their legs were shaking due to electric current. Truly painful. Walking forward, I checked their bodies for a core or skill stone. But there was nothing. Though their bodies were useful, I can't store them in the item box. They could be used to make some decent stuff. Well, let's see. Searching through the stuff in the item box, I finally found what I was looking for. A black box-like object with different patterns engraved on it. It was a storage device. It required a lot of mana to activate it, but it had far more space than item box. Storing these guys requires more mana than killing them. A small sigh escaped my mouth. It was a really tiring day and my family would have missed me. Okay, let's go home. Mom, what is taking Dad so long? He should have returned earlier than this. I asked with a confused expression on my face. It wasn't anything special to buy some stuff and return home. He went out when it was the early morning and it was already late night. It looks like your dad went to gather the things himself, she said in a somewhat certain voice. Oh God, that idiot. He should come unharmed or else. Mom shouted with a very angry expression. She was clearly worried about him by the look in her eyes. He went to gather materials himself? What would I even do with something of a higher quality? I don't even know how to do that. If I waste them, it will be a problem. A worried expression appeared on my face. Mom noticed that and said with a calm voice, Don't worry, Ian. He did that to help you, so just trust your dad. As for your dad, just leave him to me. I will make sure he doesn't do something like this again. Mom smiled and looked forward or upward. At that time, a figure was visible flying in our direction. It was fast, so it wasn't any bird. After a while of looking closely, a person was visible, flying in our direction. You are late, Mom shouted, looking up at the starry sky and the person. I didn't notice at first due to the blue moonlight. It should have obviously been him. Landing on the ground slowly, a long exhausted sigh escaped his mouth. It was tiring. I used more mana than I thought. He complained in a quiet voice and then looked at me with a happy smile. Then he looked at Mom and his face instantly went pale. Mom was smiling happily. It was a sinister smile that gave even me creeps. Good luck, Dad. You are the only one to blame for this. Walking closer to him, Mom hugged him tightly. It was a bit expected this time, so neither Dad nor I were surprised by this sudden action. I followed up and hugged them both. After a while, Mom said in a low voice, We will talk about this later. That was the clarification that he wasn't off the hook. He was well prepared for that, so he instantly replied with an almost inaudible voice. Yes, ma'am. Mom and I heard that loud and clear. It would be a difficult night for him. Poor Dad. He did that for me and now he will be scolded for that. Well, not that it's anything new. Sometimes, doing the right thing would get us in unexpected trouble. In Dad's case, though his intentions were for my good, he took a longer time than he should have. It looked like he was fine. That means he wasted time on something unnecessary. If he had returned early, he wouldn't be in this mess. Now Mom will slowly and smoothly explain to him his wrongdoing. He should be able to make it through. Hopefully. I had experienced that firsthand, so I knew it well. But they had their different arrangements. Dad, good luck. Before that, Mom and I made dinner today. Let's go eat, I said to lighten the mood a little bit. Mom was a good helper. Though she didn't cook, she was good at following what I told her. Nolan? Made? Dinner. A horrified expression appeared on his face as soon as he heard that, like he had remembered something terrifying. His face went as pale as ashes. Confused, I said again, Mom helped me to make it. Is Mom bad at cooking or something? She did help me just fine though? I don't know, as I never ate Mom's cooking. Looking at his expression, it looks like I shouldn't even ask about that. Yes, I just helped Ian. Don't worry, she confirmed with her usual smile. Then it's okay. Let's go. It looked like the situation had calmed down, so we all went inside. The beautiful blue moonlight shining upon the house was spectacular, and this night was going to be longer for someone. Standing in the middle of my large backyard, Dad, Mom, and I have gathered around in a circle with a pot in the middle of us. Sweat was clearly visible on our forehead. The pot was filled with a strange purple liquid, which was boiling in the strong heat of the orange-red fire. Covering our faces with the green-colored magic gas masks and wearing white gloves, Dad was slowly mixing the liquid in the pot. The pot was almost as tall as my mom's height. This process looks like some witchcraft, but we had to make do with what was available. But not having the proper equipment is so damn frustrating. Enchantments are somewhat like writing a series of commands. From what I had found out this past few days, the process could get very similar if you remove some troublesome things. But the problem was before the main process for me. The target of enchantment first has to have the base qualities of a mana conductor. To do that quickly to an object like this wooden arrow, there are literary automated artifacts. These are costly artifacts that could only be bought by licensed magicians in the capital city or main cities. As the artifacts could only be created by the dwarven race, the quantity is also limited. So I told Dad that we can use the primitive methods and that we can make do by mixing ingredients and making a helping substance that would work the same as the artifacts. Even though he worked hard and went through Mom's lecture, we didn't expect it would be this much boring. Just to get this thing right, we had to slowly mix it until it gets the right color. From last hour or so, Dad is mixing this shit, slowly and very carefully, thinking about helping me. I really appreciate and respect that, but waiting like this is no fun at all. The worst thing was that Mom was suffering here just to support us. I told her multiple times that she should go back, but she refused while smiling brightly. On top of it all, the sun is brightly shining on top of my head, as if to tease me. If I had something that was already made of mana-conducting material like an artifact weapon or mana clothes, I could start right away. But those things are also hard to get. Money is not even the problem. Mom slowly murmured while looking at me with a very sad expression. She thought that she said it quietly so that I wouldn't listen, but I heard it clearly. I grabbed her hand and she looked at me with a surprised expression. It's okay, Mom. I appeased her with a calm and apologetic voice. No. This could have been easy. If I clenched my hand and spoke again with a bright smile on my face. It's okay, Mom. I'm just starting it anyways. I don't know much about this, so we can do it more perfectly in the future. Hearing my words, she tightened her grip on my hand. With a sorry expression, she nodded and tried to smile. When we get back, I won't let anything like this happen, she decided with a fire in her eyes. At that time, Ian, it's ready, Dad shouted as Mom and I looked at the liquid before us. It was a jade green color that looked pleasing to the eyes. And it was the color we were waiting for. Quickly turning around, I picked up the bow, arrows, and some clothes. One by one, I threw everything into the pot. Like cooking something, Dad started mixing up everything carefully. After a solid 5 minutes of hard work, it was done. Dad fell down on his back. He was utterly exhausted. A pitiful sigh escaped my mouth. He had to be so focused on the process that he wasn't even able to hear what Mom and I were talking about a moment ago. I sat down beside him and sincerely thanked him. "Thanks, Dad. You did very well. You are the best." He smiled and replied with a question. "Am I? There could very well be someone who is better than me. Don't you think?" There was a bit of sadness in his voice, as if he is not good enough to be called the best. "I don't know about others, but for me, you are and will be the best dad. I couldn't ask for anything more than to just have them in my life. I don't know about this world, but in my previous world, parents like them were very rare. So much that I never actually saw one with my own eyes. This world could be better in that aspect, but I'm sure that even in this world, presents like they would be rare. Good luck. I hope you succeed in this. But be careful. It will be difficult, but I know you can do it better than anyone else." He patted my head gently and slowly stood up. "Nolan, are you okay?" he asked, looking at Mom with confusion. She was just standing there, watching us with warm eyes. "Oh, I was just watching you two. You two looked very good together just now," she praised, smiling like her usual self. It was very faint, but it looked like she was going to do something to Father, but stopped herself. "Okay then, Dad, let's make some ice cream. It will be perfect for a hot day like this," I suggested, thinking that the only thing that could make this atmosphere a little better for me would be some chocolate ice cream. That sounds like the perfect thing. I will take strawberries and orange, please." "Oh, honey, set some aside to make some wine-flavored one for tonight," she said with a delighted face. Mom loved ice cream, and she was even planning to turn it into a business or something. I knew something like that would happen, so I gave her some more information about the things I know and could possibly be done for mass production. She was very surprised, and we ended up talking all night. She wasn't talking as a mother at that time, but as a merchant. That day is a good memory for me because I got to talk like my old self after a long time, sharing opinions, correcting mistakes, and even about advertising and marketing. These were the things that I had done as an office worker in my previous life, so I was very confident that if I wanted, I could overturn the whole economy of an incompetent nation. Mom knew that it was a very weird thing that a child like me could talk to a pro like her on an almost equal level. She knew me, so she was the best person that understood me. And I was obviously holding myself back that time. I was still a child after all. Though she was calm on the outside, I understood her more than enough to know that she is worried inside her heart. I had to do my best to not worry her too much. "Ian, what are you doing there? Let's go," Dad shouted, and I came back to the present after hearing his loud, happy voice. "Yes." I ran forward, smiling happily at today's preparations. It will be ready by tonight, so I had almost nothing to do for rest of the day. Sitting on my desk, looking through a stack of papers in hand and a bowl with orange and pink-red colored smooth, creamy ball-like objects on the table, I sighed deeply. I don't know anymore. He is smart, good at learning new things, good at coming up with great ideas, cute, and sometimes a mature man who seems to have lived more than myself, just like those heroes depicted in children's books nowadays. But I couldn't help him today. If I just hadn't been like this. It was not that long of a time. First, I thought that we would live happily and time would pass quickly. But turned out like this. He understands me like my father. He tries his best not to cause much trouble for me, just showing his good side and holding back his frustration for many things. But one thing that he has, which even professionals fail to understand sometimes, makes him great as a person. Never giving up. Dad used to tell me and my brother every so often, but we didn't understand it until we were 15 years old. He said it was impressive that we learned that so soon, but compared to him, it is nothing. Like he already has decided on a path to walk on, clearly understanding the required efforts, determination, and patience that he would be paying. A goal. Finding it is the most important and difficult thing for all of us. Deciding a goal to achieve this early, he is able to see the path clearly ahead of him. And what could a helpless, powerless mom like me do in this situation? Just trying my best could be enough for him, but for me, it's like there's a hole in my heart. Yes, I could do it, however, not now. This feeling of being powerless was something I only felt after his birth. And, in a way, I was happy that it happened. Now I could have them pay more than ever. Clenching the paper in my hand for a moment, I put it down and picked up the bowl of ice cream. Taking a large spoon, she smiled in delight. To make something like this, the future is holding many things in its hands, to let them fall on us like fine sand, falling from the tightly clenched fists. Holding a long pencil-like wand, which was commonly used by enchanters, to engrave a spell on the target, I looked at the arrow in my hand. In this process, the languages used aren't important, but the one who is engraving the spells is. To write the whole process on the target with limited space, either a huge amount of mana or a very high level of understanding and imagination is required. Knowing the basics, the amount of energy in the spell, and harmony with each script or text is probably everything about enchanting. At least, I only know this much. All I have is myself in this one if I want to learn. Not having a proper teacher is also frustrating. Books about it are also limited to basics. Well, it's not like it is the main thing I will always be doing. Once my mana nucleus level increases, I will be able to create magic arrows with spells. Mainly being Tier 1 spells, I can't practice them now. That was why creating these enchanted arrows was the best task before my breakthrough. They were good and used far less mana than other spells. If I become proficient enough, putting even a Tier 1 spell will be possible. And by Tier 1 spell, I mean something on that level. I have limitless options when putting what will the object do when the appropriate mana is channeled. This will be an awesome thing if I can use arrows as a medium to cast a spell. Just like what I was planning to do when using magic, I can make suitable arrows to practice perfect magic archery. And I will do that only when I have the mana conducting arrows. I really don't want to do this with primitive methods like this one again. To see them struggling is the last thing I want to do. It's good that I coded many arrows beforehand. It is good enough to last at least 6 months if I include my magic practice and normal training time. Taking a deep breath, I started my first attempt. With the little mana I had right now and the limited trials I had, I decided to make the arrows strong enough to last a long time. Can I put more than one strengthening spell on one? Well, let's try putting one first. Placing the wand upon one of the arrows, I channeled my mana. Considering the space on the arrow's body, I can, at maximum, put 3 Tier 0 or 1 Tier 1 spell on it. The first one to practice was definitely the easy one. I started writing the process needed to strengthen the body of an arrow. This was a bit different from the usual strengthening spell I learned, which was a Tier 0 spell. The body of a wooden arrow could be strengthened with much less mana. As wood was part of a tree, which was an element of nature and different from the human body, strengthening it would just require the hardness of wood to grow to a different level. Process mana through the target. Change and increase the hardness of the base material. Strengthen the base material. The process was simple when first looked at, and the result was also predictable. I smiled brightly. Good. The first one failed. Now on to the next one. I definitely knew that this one was going to fail. It would have been a miracle if it did succeed. What I was trying to do was different from the normal enchantment process. If it was okay to do it my way, then I would definitely do just that. The balance of mana between each text was also a bit different. To master one enchant, I will have to do it many times to find a perfect balance of mana. And, thanks to my blessed memory, just doing it perfectly for once will be enough to memorize it. So I tried it again. It was a good mana control training too. I tried it again and again and again. Throughout the whole night, I repeated the whole process until only 1/4 of my mana was left. Sun was rising from the horizon. The light of the stars and the beautiful shining blue moon were slowly fading in the sky. The beautifully raising orange morning sun was clearly visible from my window. With dark circles under my eyes, which were glowing by the light of the rising sun, and the sparkling golden blonde hair, I was almost about to fall from exhaustion. But there was a bright smile on my face. Finally! Taking a few steps back, I slowly sat down on my bed, looking at the normal-looking arrow which was the same as the rest beside it. A triumphant smile appeared on my face. It is now 20% more strong and its hardness has increased to a whole new level. Though it can be as good as steel, it will require more than one Tier 1 spell. Strengthening or enhancement is one of the main series in Magic, so the options are very diverse to explore. Some high-level spells could enhance the body to the level of Diamond if needed. But those spells don't have to be that high level to use as enchantments. If I increase the level of my mana nucleus to maybe Tier 5, I will be able to change the molecular structure of an element. It's just a speculation and only possible in theory. But I love this thing called magic. It was hard to learn, but the fun of learning is something that someone like me, who has been in a world totally devoid of magic, can understand. Possibilities could be endless. I thought as I closed my eyes to take a small nap. I had worked hard, I deserved it. The mana I used should get refilled to at least halfway through before I wake up. With a loud yawn, rubbing my eyes, I got up from my bed. Looking at the side of the room where a large, vintage wooden clock was standing, I squinted my eyes. 2:40. Though time measurement was the same in this world as 24 hours. Unlike my previous world where a year was 365 days, this world had 369 days. Almost the same, so to say. Getting up from my bed, I looked around the room. It was cleaned up. Dad must have cleaned it while I was asleep. This means Mom knows that I was awake the whole night. Maybe. Let's hope I get off with some light punishment. On that thought, my sleep totally vanished. Taking a small shower, I changed my clothes and started to walk downstairs. Oh, I almost forgot about this. Running back into my room, I grabbed the arrow that I spend my whole night working. I wasn't going to use this one. I walked downstairs and entered straight into the kitchen. Mom was sitting on a chair while Dad was preparing lunch while wearing his usual pink apron. Seeing me enter the kitchen, a creepy bright smile appeared on Mom's sweet face. Dad, on the other hand, looked at me with a surprised expression. "Ian, you should have rested some more. Weren't you awake all night?" he shouted with a big spoon in his hand. He looked very funny when he said that. Just imagine a big handsome man holding a spoon, dressed in a pink apron. But I managed to stop myself from bursting out laughing. "Dad, here, it's for you. This is the first one I made." Holding out the arrow I made, I smiled brightly. It was my first enchanted arrow. My very first step toward achieving a difficult goal. He knew this as a surprised expression appeared on his face. What? Ian should keep it. Don't give it to me. Before he could finish his sentence, I had put the arrow in his free hand. If not for Dad's help, I wouldn't be able to make it in the first place. And it's a thank you for everything you do every day. It has to be yours. I was genuinely happy and thankful to him. He was just amazing. Mom, watching us from the sidelines, smiled happily and teased with a mischievous tone. "Honey, if you don't want it, Ian will give it to me." She blinked in my direction. I understood her intention and played along with a smile. "Yes, I will give this to Mom." He instantly took the arrow and put it away in his item box. Looking at us with an embarrassed look, he shouted, "No, you gave it to me, so I will cherish it forever." Smiling happily, I nodded my head. Then we heard Mom's sad voice. "It looks like only Dad gets a special gift. Huh? Is it because Ian loves Dad more than me?" I instinctively retorted with a worried expression. "And no, Mom is as good as Dad. You are both the best. I will be making something else for Mom." I knew she was just teasing me, but I can't help it. I already had something on my mind for Mom, but it would take some time. I'm thinking of something more special for Mom. A satisfied smile appeared on her face. Oh? Something special? Yes, but it will take some time to be ready. Then I have no choice but to wait patiently. She was more cheerful for some reason as she looked at both of us. Ian. Dad was going to say something but stopped. Sniffling for a moment, a horrified expression appeared on his face. Mom and I were confused too. There was a smell of something burning. Dad! I suddenly remembered and looked at the soup that was now burning in the pot. Dad instinctively created a large ball of water and it fell on the burning pot. The water fell and the fire was put out. But, ha ha ha. Dad and I were absolutely soaked by the large waterfall. Mom tried to hold back her laughter, but we looked just that funny right now. This continued until Dad dried both of us with a warm wind and we gave her a silent stare. Dad had a somewhat crying look. Sitting down, I tried my best to maintain my straight face. Even I wanted to cry right now. This day would be a memorable one for all of us. In a basement-like place that was dimly lit by some small lights on both sides, a transparent blue orb was placed in the middle of a large magic circle. A person with a small yellow hue surrounding his perfectly toned body was engraving something on the large magic circle. With extreme concentration, not even blinking while carving new lines on the floor. Small dopes of sweat were slowly falling down from his clear, pale forehead. With slow and deep breaths, he connected the last two lines in a triangle with his pure white wand. A blue light escaped from the orb and then slowly spread throughout the whole magic circle. Shining with a bright blue-white color for a while, the light slowly faded and only the magic circle remained. Finally, it's done. A long, exhausting breath escaped from his mouth. After 3 weeks of constant work, the defensive core was now ready to register another mana signature. Ian can finally use magic. He had to wait for quite some time, but he managed to pass time with his unique arrows. He has surprised me more than my life had until now. He's just amazing. Now he didn't even know how to praise his own son. He stood up with a small smile on his face and turned around. I can't wait to tell him about this. He excitedly turned around. In the backyard of the house, a young boy with shining golden blonde hair was holding a bow and arrow with strange patterns on it. The patterns, if looked closely, were shining with a blue glow. I released the arrow and, just as it left my bow, it shot forward with much more force than a normal arrow could. Just as it hit the red and white wooden target, it almost pierced the target. Holy Mother of Goblins! I gasped, looking at the performance of my first arrow with 3 full enchantments. Plus body enhancement, plus speed enhancement, plus heat. One increased the strength of the body, the second increased the aerodynamics with wind mana particles, and the third heated up the tip to increase the piercing effect. The result was more than I originally expected. It could have been more dangerous if I hadn't made any preparations. I looked at my bow and smiled internally. This was the best thing I had made until now. A bow that only activates the enchanted arrows when they left the bow after a while. Just like a trigger or circuit, only when the arrow is no longer in contact with it, the mana activates enchantments on it. It was difficult to figure out the balance of mana in every single text. Though it's almost close to a Tier 1 spell, it's not quite at that level as there are many things that this bow lack. Just that mana input limits me to 9 arrows at a time. It would completely drain my mana reserve if I try more than 12 arrows. Just making this arrow took me a whole week. But it was definitely worth it. I looked at the target with fear in my eyes. If Mom found this, I may not be able to practice archery for the next few weeks. A small, cold shiver ran down my spine just thinking about that. Walking towards the target, I tried to take the arrow out of it. It was difficult because it had almost pierced the thick wooden target. With a loud cry, I barely took the arrow out with my full basic strength. It would have been much easier to use magic, but conserving mana was important. Putting the target back, I walked back towards my usual position. Taking out another arrow which had different enchantments than the previous one, I placed it on the bow and stretched out my bowstring. This arrow was a gamble well as a prototype for the final product. If this worked, I was sure how my first real magic arrow will be. A small blue light appeared on the bow, but the arrow had a dull red light on it. Closing my eyes, I focused all my attention as far as I can. I wasn't going to get the arrow back, so it had to be as far away from where I was. Origin skill Mystic Eyes. I released the bowstring and the arrow shot forward. I saw the body of the arrow where I put 2 heat and 1 wind enchant closely. As I had now mastered the skill, I was able to see as far away as I wanted, for a limited time. Of course, I had limitations on the distance, but it was as good as 9 km. For now, the body of the arrow slowly started to turn bright red. Slowly a small fire burned like a matchstick and engulfed the whole arrow. The arrow was on fire. It was a good enough fire to call Tier 1. And so the fire enchantment was a success. Now that it's true that I can make fire without the Tier 1 spell called Small Fire, I can create much strong fire with a Tier 1 spell. If possible, I can shoot a flame arrow-like spell without any real arrow and only with fire-type mana particle. Yes! I shouted with a winning hand gesture. This was the result of 3 days' work. And it was successful. It felt good when you were able to get a good result from your long effort. I was rejoicing in my successes. But then, Ian, why is there a fire? Dad just came out of the house but shouted with surprise as soon as saw the fire in the distance. The arrow fell on the grass, so the fire was getting bigger. It was quite far, so I didn't think he would notice this quickly. I was so happy that I had almost forgotten about the fire. Should have put the fire out first. I sighed as I thought that. He looked at me and understood that it was my doing. With a snap of his finger, he put the fire out in an instant. Not taking the risk of my dear mother finding it out. He cleaned up the ground with wind magic. Shaking his head, he walked toward me and said with a solemn expression, Ian, you should refrain from something dangerous. Playing with fire by yourself could be dangerous. Next time, have me around when you do something like this. Yes, I will keep that in mind. I nodded and took a note to have a dad around when experiencing these things. That way, if Mom were to find out and punish me, Dad will have to be there to accompany me. Anyways, Ian. He called my name with a serious expression. I knew this was something important, so I picked up my ears. Do you promise to practice magic only when I am around? If you don't, then you won't get permission from me. I promise that I will only practice magic only when you are around. I understood that the time had come from his question. Dad has completed the barrier and I can register my mana signature. Dad saw the look in my eyes and understood that I was determined. He nodded with a big smile on his face. It was also a proud smile. Then let's go and tell Mom. He was also excited to see me practice magic. There was anticipation in his eyes, to see something unexpected again. But then we heard a sweet, cheerful voice from behind. Oh? Papa and son are going to see Mommy? What could the reason be? Mom was on the other end of the door, walking toward us with her usual smile on her beautiful face. Mom! Dad finished the barrier and I can start the magic practice. I shouted happily, but then I saw Mom's expression changing. It wasn't much dramatic change, but I saw it clearly. But it quickly vanished and she regained herself. Oh? Now Ian can practice magic? How wonderful! There were very small hints of worry and her act would have gone unrecognized by anyone else. But I was able to see it and Dad too. But we both pretended not to know that. Mom saw through us, but didn't say much and dragged us inside. Then we talked for some time and I reassured Mom that I will be okay. Dad too talked for a moment with her personally. This time the situation was cleared out very quickly. Ian, do your best, she said with still worried eyes. But now there was resolution in them. She was very difficult to deal with, but that was her. An always worried, helpless mother. Mom, I will do my very best. And I won't do it alone anyway. Dad will always be around. With that, Mom was fully convinced. Now, I could practice it in earnest. Magic! A single thought covered my mind. What would it be like to use different and new types of spells? How can I make different changes? How the things actually work? Can I really do super cool stuff like flying or making big explorations? There were a lot of things currently going on in my mind, but the excitement was the same as ever. At long last, something that will be much more fun was about to start. In the quiet library, the voice of something being written on the board was echoing. Dad was drawing different magic circles on the board to explain all the main magic series. This was a regular theory class, and he was explaining everything slowly and carefully. We have already registered my mana signature in the defensive barrier in the early morning. It was my first time seeing the basement floor, and it was amazing. It was filled with different, weird things. There were many magic devices too. I just had to put some mana in the core orb, so I didn't get the chance to explore everything. Today, he was teaching about the main magic series in this world. Magic in this world is divided into 6 main series. 1. Destruction 2. Enhancements 3. Support 4. Summoning 5. Illusion 6. Unique. Except for the last one, Unique Magic, which is specialized magic and only developed and used by certain individuals. Every other series can be used by anyone. We can test and choose which series of magic suit us the most. People mainly focus on 1 or 2 of these series to master when they are admitted into the academy or choose to take a separate path like an adventurer. The Destruction series mainly focuses on power and magic output. With any of the 6 elemental attributes as its base, one could cast the designated destruction magic. Enhancement magic focuses on increasing the strength or speed or any other stat, or more simply, any aspect of the material body. Environmental mana is used in the process so that any required element could work in the process. Support magic includes healing magic, barrier magic, and magic cancellation. Water and light attributes are mostly used in healing. Barriers can be made with any elemental type, and magic and cancellation use the opposite type of spell to counter the first one. Summoning magic is rarely used by human beings, as the one close to nature has a better affinity with creatures of the element. On the dark side, summoning dark beings like demons or undead is common among some groups who have forsaken humanity. Illustration magic could be very lethal if the target does not have good mental fortitude. Used in the assassination or as a barrier to separate areas, it's a very difficult type to master. For someone like Ian who has more than one natural elemental affinities, finding one type to master would be a very difficult task. Dad stopped and looked back. He had filled the 2 large boards in the library with different geometrical shapes and circles. He always enjoys talking about magic and stuff like this, but there was a bit of concern when he said that having many options is sometimes a curse. I know that very well. When you could do many things but have to choose only one of them, it becomes a life or death type situation. If you choose and can't take back your decision, it eats you up from the inside. So, in this life, I had decided to do the things that I wanted. Having Mom and Dad as my presence is nothing but a blessing. So, Ian, let's practice some real magic. He cleaned up everything with water magic and moved out of the door while jumping in excitement. He was more excited than I about magic practical. Was he planning to blow something up? Whatever it was, I was excited too. With a bit of uneven breathing, I reached the backyard. I know that you have learned basic, tier 0, spells already, so I will show you some uncommon ones. I can't use light and darkness attributes at all, so you will have to figure them out by yourself. He closed his eyes for a moment and channeled some water-type mana. It was amazing to see mana particles quickly rush towards him. As some seconds passed, the water slowly got cold and then froze in a round shape. A small ice ball. It was almost transparent, and the faint vapor coming out of it was almost unnoticeable. Higher form of water and most basic and very difficult, water freeze. It freezes water and makes it into ice. We first have to take water and take away all the heat from it to drop its temperature until it gets to the point where it freezes. In short, make water and take away the heat from it. Sounds simple, but it definitely is very difficult. You should practice after seeing the rest of them. Just as I lifted my hand to gather mana, Dad suggested to practice it later. Now, Spark is one of the most difficult spells for a beginner. Being a higher form of fire, grasping the feel is most difficult when manifesting the spell. Small sparks of lightning appeared on Dad's fingertips. Whoa! So this is the lightning attribute. Dad never used it at home. Is it because it takes this much time to manifest just tier 0 spell? It looks awesome though. I looked at it with sparkling eyes. This was going to be very exciting to learn. Just like this too, he showed me some different spells and talked about some spells that he couldn't use. There was some sorrow in his eyes when he talked about the spells that he couldn't use. As a mage, he was very good at things he could do. But now that he was teaching me, he was a bit disappointed. It was understandable. I was his son after all. He could be thinking that he wasn't good enough again. Dad, I think you are the best at what you can do. It's the path you walked on. There is nothing wrong. In fact, I think you are awesome. He smiled at my words. It was a smile that was expecting these words. I knew he would say something like that. He is amazing. A smile appeared on his face. With a nod, he sat down on a chair by the other side. You should start practicing now. If you have any problem, just ask me. I nodded and started to prepare. In total, I had memorized 42 different tier 0 spells, including the ones Dad showed me today. However, most of them are useless to me, like circulate, farsi, breath, maintain. They are spells for someone that don't have any knowledge of magic. So, in total, the spells that I was going to practice were enhancement spells and elemental spells. The first one that I practiced was Enhance Speed, which I asked Dad for the first time back then. After using the spell, I tried to run like I always but my speed was expectedly fast. I didn't know how to control my speed and almost fell on the grass. It was a good thing to have Daddy around. Just as I was about to fall, a small wind passed by and stopped me from almost falling. Ian, be careful. Dad shouted with a bit of worry in his tone. I should be more careful. Getting a good feel of my increased stats, I started running again. This time it was much easier. I could clearly feel the increase in my speed was a large 10%. It was amazing. If I could use speed, stamina, dexterity, and strength enhancement all at once, it will be a great help in my archery training. But, for now, I can only cast one spell on myself at a time. My mana was limited, so I decided to only practice one type at a time. So, I left the enhancement series and started with elemental spells. Heat, small wind, water, pebbles, small light, shape shadow, spark, freeze water, disturbing sound, plant growth. Of the many tier 0 spells, ones with higher elemental versions like disrupt sound, which was from a higher version of wind, and plant growth, which was from a higher version of earth, were difficult to start. The problem wasn't the spell itself, but the output of mana which was necessary for the spell to work. Being one of the most difficult spells, they required a large amount of mana at once, which was a really new thing for me. Just casting Spark took me almost half a day. Just one successful attempt had drained 1/3 of my mana. Though I knew the principle behind the spells and my imagination while casting the spell was unique, the first time was difficult. When I tried it the second time, it was much easier. Just separation of ions from the base to create electricity was tough. Dad stopped me when the sun was about to almost set on the horizon. I was exhausted too, so we headed back into the house. Dad had a pale expression as we headed back. And I knew why. He mastered it? A higher elemental spell in hours. I knew he will learn it quickly, but not this quickly. This speed was unprecedented, even for a genius. Just memorizing the spell would take a normal mage 3 days at the very minimum. It's always like this. He understands something he learns for the first time. Just amazing. There weren't enough words to describe my shock. But there was definitely some pride in his eyes. As a father, there was no better joy than just having him. But he offers far more than that. These contradictory feelings of shock and joy are just that special of a feeling. Looking at me, Dad smiled happily, and I also gave him a warm smile. There were still many things left to learn and many things to see, but the journey was more fun than whatever the destination was going to be. In a very quiet office-like room, a beautiful lady was quietly reading and scribbling on the paper with a unique fountain pen with a weird creature inscribed on it. Because of the bright sunlight coming from the window behind her, the shiny blonde hair she had were almost sparkling. The atmosphere was quiet and she looked in a good mood. But then, she suddenly stopped writing when the shadows inside the room started reacting weirdly. As if to be alive, the shadows moved and a dark humanoid outline came out of the shadow. It then slowly cleared up and revealed an older-looking man with dark clothing. With white hair, dark blue eyes, and a normal face which was like any other good grandpa who lived next door. He bowed and spoke with a very low, nostalgic voice. "Have you been well, young miss?" My eyes widened in surprise. With shaking hands, the pen in my hand fell on the paper. With my eyes still wide open, I looked at him with surprise, but there was joy in my eyes while looking at him. "You almost surprised me, Grandpa Jean." Even though I had seen him do that many times this time, it completely caught me off guard. Though unexpected, seeing him after such a long time was definitely a good thing. He chuckled as put his hand on his mouth to hide his smile. "Seeing you surprised is a rare sight to behold, miss." It wasn't every day that he could see that flustered face of hers. And if it had been in the past, this would be something that no one would believe was possible. "Gramps, you just..." With a slightly red face, I shouted in frustration. There weren't many people who could tease her like this. Taking a minute to calm down, a strange silence shrouded the room. With a serious expression, I asked, "You coming here must mean that things are about to end, right?" The voice that came out of my mouth, however, was desperate. Nothing like my usual self. "Yes, just 2 more months. We have almost gathered everything." This was one of the most reliable voices for me. If he said that, it meant that the time had almost come. Finally, my heart ran faster and my blood almost ran cold. Now that I knew how long it was going to take, waiting would feel much longer. "Master is also excited to finally be able to see you too, and young Master. I too want to meet him as soon as possible, but Master ordered me, he will be the first one to meet him." He then chuckled and put a letter on my desk. I instantly recognized it was from Big Brother when I saw the glowing blue rose on it. Master Elkin was, very eager to come along with me, but Master Locked, stopped him. "Well, you know, that's him." He awkwardly scratched his cheeks with his index finger and sighed deeply. My brother was more dramatic when it came to me, and now Ian too. I'm sure he's gloomily sitting in the corner of his room, all gloomy. How does Big Sis even handle that crybaby? A defeated sigh escaped my mouth while thinking about him. "So Gramps, wanna see him?" He was the person who took care of my brother and me for as long as I could remember. He was very good at stealth and was almost at upper advanced level in using his origin skill. I was already thinking of letting him teach Ian, but he has to wait a bit longer for that. I can't meet him directly, but seeing him from afar would be okay, right?" Nodding with a bright smile, we walked downstairs. Opening the door of the backyard, I stood at the door and watched him doing his magic training. Almost a week has passed since we started the magic training. I was almost able to grasp every spell there was in Tier 0, so we had started doing some mana control training. From mana breathing to manually circulating mana, I had always relied on my skill, so I didn't know how it's done manually. Learning it wasn't a bad idea. Dad was already at a loss for words when I finished learning all the spells he taught me in just a week. It was unprecedented. Took an entire day to calm him down. Mom was having fun. Was my suffering funny? It's hard to understand her sometimes. I sighed. "Okian, this is enough for today. We can start the physical training now." I opened my eyes slowly at Dad's voice. Exhaling deeply, I stood up and stretched for a while. It took high mental fortitude to trace the mana circulation manually. Looking around, I suddenly spotted Mom watching us while leaning against the door. But, is there something besides her? I rubbed my eyes and looked at her again, with a confused expression clouding my face. Now, there was nothing. Is it just my imagination? I waved at Mom and called her out. "Mom!" She waved back at me and shouted in her happy tone. "Ian, don't overwork yourself. Honey, you too." She talked with Dad for a bit and went back inside. I thought she was just checking up on us, so I didn't pay much attention to it and went back to training. Young miss. I think young Master Ian is more amazing than I heard from the master. As soon as I entered my room, Grandpa Jean commented in an admiring voice. Isn't he? He is amazing. After all, he is my son. Hoo-hoo. I was always proud of him. Hearing someone compliment him was one of the greatest joys for a mother like me. Yes, indeed. It's very commendable for a young child like him to almost see through this old man's primary concealment. If we had stood there for another minute, then I'm sure he would have seen through me. There were signs of respect, shock, and pride in his eyes. It's amazing, right? I replied with a cracking voice. Even I was shocked to hear this. I knew this friendly neighborhood grandpa's prowess well. If he said that, then he really meant it. Young miss, I know as a parent you must be worried, but he has unparalleled talent. That fact can't be changed. I will just say that being a bit selfish is okay, but if it escalates much, those emotions might change into something different. I know you know this and will make the right decisions in the future. Saying that, he melted into the shadows and vanished. I know. I whispered under my breath and went back to my desk to continue the work I left. Once again, holding my bow and 3 different arrows by the bowstring, I looked straight ahead. The targets were quite far away this time, almost 600 meters away from where I was standing. It was almost sunset and there would soon be time to go back inside. The 3 arrows I was holding were enchanted with a new spell I made. The arrows with Small Gust spell on them were supposed to work as a combo and join tougher to be more powerful than normal wind element arrows. Aside from Small Gust, there was a join spell which should work, as I hoped. Well, its function was to join the things like glue with earth and water type mana, but the targets have to be in touch with each other for this low-level spell to work. I cannot do something fancy like shooting arrows and combining them together with some electric sparks and then making a boom. Nope, not possible for now. Releasing the arrows at once like that manually is very difficult. I don't even know if it will go as I planned. The probability was minuscule. Who knows? Maybe it could get influenced by my whopping 21 luck. Or Lady Luck would get charmed by my heavenly 19 charm. If there is a possibility, then what harm is there to try? And if something does go wrong, Dad was watching from there. If he is here, then there isn't anything to worry about. Taking a deep breath, I adjusted the arrows between my fingers. There would be a gust of wind around them as soon as I realized them, so the distance had to be calculated and the spell invocation time had to be aligned. After thinking for a moment, I gathered all my focus on the target. Only focusing on it and nothing else, maintaining my breathing, I gathered my mana on my fingertips and onto the bow and arrow. After checking the air disturbance and some other factors, I confirmed everything again. With my heart beating faster with the excitement of the result, I released the arrows. And then, contrary to my expectations, all 3 arrows flew in different directions as soon as they left the bow. When the enchantment got activated, all 3 of them were already 50 meters away from each other. The mana activated in it and arrow's speed accelerated. In 2 different directions, the arrows are stuck in different things. One stuck the log on which the target was set. One struck the grassy ground before the targets. The last one, however, changed its direction and flew back towards me. I closed my eyes in fear and put my hands in front of me in defense. But, fortunately, the arrow fell after colliding with an invisible shield before me. With a horrified expression, I fell to the ground. This was the first things go wrong situation for me. Ian! Dad shouted and ran in my direction. He was also terrified with his eyes popped out. Sitting down by my side, he helped me stand back up. Checking me from head to toes, he sighed in relief. I wasn't hurt in any way. That was a relief. This was a very unfortunate result. The airflow created after the 3 spells were activated caused the directions of the arrows to change. I had thought of a situation like this, but the chances of it really happening was very minuscule. Looks like Lady Luck was in a bad mood today for something like this to happen. I sighed and stood up. Walking forward, I collected all 3 arrows and came back to my position. Dad, we will do this 2 more times to see what happens. If it goes wrong again, then we will call it a day. My voice was firm and he could see the determination in my eyes. He was now really worried. This was a really dangerous situation. Though I had put a mana protection, enchantment on my clothes and even made a small shield in that split second, things might have really gone wrong. It was the best thing to have him around. But as a father, he was worried beyond common sense. But after seeing the determination in my eyes, he couldn't help it. After a solid minute of thinking and deciding, he sighed in defeat. Okowo. Giving a short answer, he stood just 2 steps behind me. It was okay, so I went back to my previous stance. With some focus, I tried again. The other 2 tries were also failures. My bad. Well, tomorrow might be lucky. I sighed deeply. We packed up and went inside with Dad still having a complicated face and mind full of chaotic thoughts. My son is amazing. He is intelligent, creative, understands his 2 lacking parents, and maybe he's a better cook than me. And the most amazing thing about him isn't something small like that. He has a goal. Some young teenagers would not have any idea what they are doing something for. Why do we study? Why do we read and gain knowledge? Why does a magician suffer so hard to learn those difficult things? Why does a person wield a weapon? Why do we want to get stronger? He has the answer for all of them. He is barely 6 years, yes, just a 6-year-old child. He said he wanted to protect us, with straight eyes filled with unprecedented determination. I knew those eyes from back then. They weren't the eyes of a child. Definitely. Only someone who has suffered in solitude and loneliness can have so much desire to protect a hard-earned place to belong. I know them somewhat because I was like that at one point too. But I had anger driving me back then. Just pure hatred and anger. He, on the other hand, had hope in those sharp eyes. A hope greater and more desperate than any other I had seen. Hope for life. A wish to live in present. Something that I found only after meeting her. I still remember that first meeting and that soft hand. That eventful day was just precious. He might be someone who has suffered more than me. Being alone and being lonely are different things, and I know that very well. But the sufferings in both of them are just as great. From fear to anger, everything hurts if it's piled up over and over. I was saved, but he could have just ended with all of that. Alone. I can't even fathom the coldness of that suffering. But it was not something of the present. Now he is just my cute, little Ian. An unparalleled magician, or more precisely, a never-seen-before magic archer. I put my right hand on his forehead, warmly looking at him. He was sleeping like a baby. He trusted me, but there was still that accident. I had checked them beforehand, but to think they could be used in the way he was trying to use them, it was very amazing. What he tried was something like spell combining, a technique that mages like me mainly use, but he tried it with enchanted arrows. And the result that could be achieved by it was an equivalent force of an arrow powered with Tier 2 wind magic. But this foolish child could have gotten really hurt. He was reckless this time. Though he had his protective gear, if the spell had succeeded, and then backfired as a whole, then it would have been very dangerous. A worried expression shrouded my face. But it was okay. Nothing happened, and that was enough. One more thing to notice about him was his rapid mana-gathering speed. Though he had his auxiliary skill to thank, without his daily hard work, it would not be possible. He will soon reach Tier 1. Fastest for any human to ever reach that level. Yes, I was worried, but I was also relieved for a reason. Now I will have real things to teach him. The magic truly started from Tier 1. There were countless spells to learn and countless things to experience. Magic would start from there. But he still needs time. With a small smile, I creased his forehead and stood up. Just as I turned around, I spotted my dear, lovely wife, happily watching us from the door. With a small nod, we smiled and left the room. In a dimly lit bedroom at the corner of the house, We were sitting on our bed, holding hands in the small gap between us. My hand was a bit sweaty, but her was warm. There were traces of small bumps, but I knew they were from doing her usual paperwork. There was a strange silence and tension in the room today. I didn't want to talk about the accident, but what could be her reason for hesitation? After a moment of silence, she broke the silence and started speaking. Grandpa Jean visited in the morning. The reason for her hesitation quickly dawned upon me. A small smile appeared on my face as I asked while tightening my grip on her hand. So it seems that they gathered almost everything. Yes, it should take just 2 more months. And then, a warm smile clicked on her face. She was desperate to quickly go back and introduce Ian to everyone. Good. No more words came out of my mouth. And that was enough for her. Resting her head on my shoulder, she closed her eyes. The room was calm again. I thought that we would be like this all night, but pouring cold water on the calm was her sharp question. So, when are you going to tell me what happened today? I know it's about Ian. HM? She pushed me back on the bed with a terrifying smile. I knew at that point it was too late now. With a cracking voice, I unconsciously tried to explain, just to hear something I definitely expected. No, Nolan. I can explain everything. Oh, you defiantly will. After I'm finished, that is. She sat on top of me with that same terrifying smile. With dawn slowly approaching, the horizon was preparing to be dyed in the morning hue of the beautiful rising sun. Watching this from a large balcony of a huge sea blue mansion was a middle-aged figure. With short hair which perfectly complemented his long and finely braided beard, he looked somewhat intimidating. But the aura around him was very different his large frame. Though he was tall and had a very strong build, he felt strangely approachable. You would feel like talking to him by just being around him. It was a strange feeling, but anyone in the Empire would know this figure just with a small glance. Master! Turning around, a shadow started to materialize in a human form. It reflected in his stoic, deep blue eyes. After a few seconds, the shadow took a form of an old man in a butler uniform. He had white hair, but his eyes weren't that of an old man. Although the old man looked very tired with sweat falling from his forehead, he stood straight in front of his master. Walking back inside the house and motioning the old man to sit, a voice filled with emotions came out of the middle-aged man. How were they? Did you see him? How was he doing? Though he asked many things at once, the older man understood every single word. They are happy and healthy. Nothing other than young Master Ian is just worrying them. But, well, that's the fun of being parents. You get to worry about small things while also rejoicing over the same facts. He was happy seeing the 2 parents doing so well. There was joy in his eyes, the joy of a grandfather seeing his grandchildren. But young Master Ian is more amazing than you told me, Master. His eyes and his perception, they are good. A shocked expression appeared on the middle-aged man's face. Then, it slowly turned into a big smile. My little grandson is more than amazing. He is awesome. Looks like this aging body will have one more person to teach in the future. Then, as if to remember something, he punched the table before him. Oh, wait, he is also a mage. He also has a origin skill. Looks like he will have 3 more people to teach him once he gets here. He looked at the old butler with a grin on his face. Jean, you will have a student. After such a long time, you will have someone to really teach something. The old man laughed heartily. Seeing his master behave like a grandfather was something he enjoyed very much. And hearing about him being a teacher was something new. Something very new that he hadn't done in decades. Being a teacher was the same as being a parent. He was happy. It was displayed with his bright smile. Now, we wait. And when the time comes, his eyes took a sharp turn. The same eyes which were happily laughing were now cold as the ancient northern seas. Something similar was going on with the old man as he too had anger in those wise eyes. You can go now. The middle-aged man closed his eyes as he sat still. The old butler bowed and left the room. Now the large room was left silent, again. The silence was only broken by the sound of the door's crack opening. Two small eyes looked into the room from the half-open door. The eyes were as blue as the sky, same as the middle-aged man. Looking inside was a little girl with bright red hair. Carla. A smile appeared on the middle-aged man's face. This meant that it was time. Grandfather caught me again. You weren't even looking this time. She shouted and ran towards her grandfather. He stood up and picked her up. She was a child, maybe around 6 or 7 years old from her size. Her neatly tied red hair was as beautiful as blood. She was wearing a training outfit with a sheathed wooden sword hanging around her waist. I got up early today. Her cute voice was very sweet and there was excitement in her voice. You look happy, little one? What's the occasion? He asked with a smile, but the answer he got was unexpected. But it widened the smile on his face. Mom said Aunt and my little brother, whom you praise so much, will be back soon. I will spar with him and defeat him. So, I have to train a bit more. Laughing, he started walking towards the door. You will have to work hard to beat that one, little lady. Seeing his granddaughter fired up was very cute. Oh, that we will see, she chuckled. She had an evil smile which, too, looked cute to him. Standing in my backyard at my usual spot, I was crying while laughing. They were tears of joy. My father, hugging me tightly, was laughing triumphantly. In the distance away from us was a wooden target. Or, more precisely, there used to be one. Now, only a wooden ring, with almost all of its inner parts obliterated, was barely hanging out by the wooden log. Behind the now wooden ring, an arrow, or 3 arrows stick as one, had created a small crater with only mud remaining around it. This was a success. The power displayed by the arrows was as good as any Tier 2 spell. It was amazing. My month-long suffering finally paid off. Just focusing on this one type of combination arrow was tiring, challenging, and most importantly, it was fun. Dad and I worked on this arrow combination together. After the first failure and accident, Dad started overreacting to every small thing. When I repeatedly demanded an explanation, he told me how he was almost punished. Well, Mom was the reason, ultimately. So we experimented together again and again, day and almost late at night. We were locked in my room most of the time the day. This experience was delightful. We had fun, very fun, calculating and finding the mana output for each text, putting together different materials to stabilize the outcome, and lastly, hearing Mom's lectures together. It was very, very exciting. At one point, we started waiting for Mom's punishments. It was fun for us to see her embarrassed because she knew full well that we were doing it on purpose. Now, we had a chance to tease her, and we used it full well. I learned many things from Dad these past few weeks. How to efficiently calculate and achieve the desired results. He, on the other, had sometimes got petrified by how fast I learned those higher-level things. And he also actually learned some things from me. We shared opinions, shared suggestions, and played around with different things. None of us were some researcher or anything like that, but it was fun. And our month-long efforts paid off today. A few minutes ago, when I launched the last prototype, it really came together and joined, increasing the efficiency and output of the overall spell. As the enchantment on the arrows was gather wind, vacuum, and the last one to attract them together, the result we achieved was perfect. But the downsides of this whole process were loss of 3 fine arrows, decrease in a rare material like Sanctrin, and a possibly long real lecture from Mom. But, well, enjoying the current joy was everything I could think of right now. Our little celebrating lasted until... What was that noise just now? Mom stood cold, looking silently at the arrow that caused a small crater, a perfectly pierced target, and her happily enjoying son and husband. Brian! Ian! She shouted. The anger in her voice was the perfect thing to drag us back to reality. We looked at her in unison, frozen. Everyone would know what was going to happen from that point on. Looking down upon the 2 idiots, I signed in defeat. They had done many atrocities all around the house this past few weeks, but I never thought that they were making something like this. Holding the 3 almost destroyed arrows tightly, I looked at them again. Brian was trying to hide his face while looking at me, while my dear little son was looking quietly at me, as though he had known something like this was inevitable. I sighed again, deeply, trying to calm myself down. Now, words won't work on this too, who strangely grew accustomed to my harsh words, and now they took pleasure when I scolded them. What was I? Some kind of mommy cat scolding her little kittens? Jay, just thinking about this is... Wham! I screamed with my mouth closed. They looked at me in confusion but didn't say anything. After a moment of thinking, I made a tough decision. No outside training for a week. A shocked expression replaced their calm and nervous expressions. This was the first time I said anything like this, and it was good this way. They will get a good rest as well as be away from something practically crazy like this for a while. And I won't have to worry about them for the time being. Though they had worked tirelessly for the last few weeks, they enjoyed themselves very much. They were happy and bold with me, if I say. Brian seemed like he had made a true friend after a long while. A friend. That was something very difficult for him, but he was able to be free from being a parent and be friends. And most importantly, they looked very cute when they accidentally fall asleep while doing their work. I could stare at those cute baby faces for eternity. Ahem. I controlled myself from almost drooling. So ultimately, I was less angry about this one. And if any new, safe idea popped up in their mind and they started their work again, it will be win-win. Well, that was what I thought about the very least. Mom, Dad, and I were already thinking of dropping the outside training for the week and focusing on my Tier 1 breakthrough. Ian hesitantly said something with a quiet tone, but I couldn't possibly have heard the right thing. HM? Sorry, I don't think I caught that last thing. I think I misheard something like Tier 1? I thought I heard wrong, but it was true. He shook his head at me and repeated with an awkward smile. Mom, you heard right. I will reach Tier 1 soon. He was smiling. On the other hand, Brian had a satisfied look. I glanced at him and said with my eyes, I will see you later. His satisfied smile vanished and a grim expression coated his face. Ignoring him, I looked at my happy son again. Now, he had given another shock to this already shocked mom. Now, however, I had accepted that he is a real genius and I can't stop him even if I want to. Sighing, I sat down and hugged him. He wasn't even 6 years old properly and he was going to reach Tier 1. Don't overdo it. Just take everything slowly. Dad will be there, so don't do difficult stuff by yourself. I kissed his forehead and went out after talking with Brian for a while. Now, this pitiful mom will worry about her sweet family while sitting alone for a while. Today was full of surprises. And of course, worrying was a part of my everyday life. Next day, I was in my room with Dad. I was sitting on the floor with my legs crossed, with closed eyes and a white hue surrounding me. The process of increasing the tier of a mana nucleus is somewhat simple and difficult at the same time. If you consider normal means, the special mana breathing technique or something similar helps to increase the natural mana capacity and helps in the recovery of used mana. In my case, I had a natural skill for mana recovery, so replenishing the used mana was easy. So the only thing I had to think about was the mana refining. Increasing the purity of mana and pushing the natural capacity of mana in the mana nucleus to a certain level permanently increases the tier at one point. There are special weapons and artifacts which help temporarily, but permanently increasing it with them may not be possible. Well, this magic and mana is just one of the many types of energies of this world. But, well, it's the most used in this continent. Currently, Dad was helping me in purifying mana. He had his hand on my back, his mana slowly flowing through my core to help my mana remember the higher purity. This technique was, according to some books, one of the many techniques that higher-level mages like Dad used to help the new magicians. Without this, I probably would have taken a much longer time to safely reach Tier 1. Though Dad was helping me like this almost every day, he was surprised to see the speed of my improvement. It was fast, very fast, and I only have one thing to thank for this. My only auxiliary skill with diverse uses, the energy circulation. Now I think, without this skill, I would be just 1/4 of myself. It was that much of an important part of me. Like, hell dude, even if I don't get any other skills in the future, this one skill would do a pretty good job. I thanked the skill and focused all my attention on the training. After almost 3 hours, Dad removed his hand from my back. With sweat falling from all over my body, as well as my rough breathing was a bit excessive today. Ian, it looks like it won't even take a week, Dad said from behind me. He too was exhausted, but not as much as me. Hearing his usual surprised voice, I slowly released a long breath. Dad, it looks like we will have to make some ice cream today. Not only because of the hot day but also to calm Mom and help me recover from today's training. If you want, then sure, he said absent-mindedly, still somewhat shocked. Shaking my head, I went towards the bathroom. The magic technology in this world was quite similar to my previous world, so the hot and cold water showers were one of my favorite things here. Ian, today is the day. Looking straight into those serious, red eyes, I replied with a small nod. Don't worry, I believe in you, so I will leave it to you. With a slightly red face, he smiled and nodded. I know, it will be a bit painful as it will be your first time, but afterward, everything will be okay. I gave him a small smile and started to open the buttons of my shirt. He also pulled up his sleeves, revealing an arm with perfectly sculpted muscles. Sitting down on the floor, where a large white sheet was gently spread out, I closed my eyes. Putting his rough hand on my small back, he reassured me once again. Don't worry and just leave everything to this awesome daddy. A very low, cracking voice escaped my mouth. If you say so. He smirked and started doing his thing. A small voice escaped my tightly shut mouth as soon as the warmth entered inside me from behind. The mana started to make his way to the center of my body, towards my mana nucleus. I would be able to use Tier 1 magic very soon. The first breakthrough was supposed to be a bit painful as it was the first time a magician's body was increasing the purity of overall mana inside the body. Not every breakthrough increased the mana purity as much as the first and 7th time. The first time was to set a foundation and the 7th time was a halfway point to reach a higher realm. As a new body adapting to foreign energy like mana, the first breakthrough was nothing compared to the ones after that in terms of power. But comparatively, the first breakthrough increased the purity of mana more than the second time and afterward. So, after the first breakthrough, the individual progress would be faster. Can feel it. The mana inside me was expanding, passing throughout my body through various mana channels. Helping the mana was my auxiliary skill. Energy circulation was guiding the mana like an old guide, slow, wise, and gentle, cleaning up some impurities in mana. Dad was a spearhead as he showed the path to traveling mana. This process silently continued for almost 60 minutes and, suddenly, I felt intense pain between my heart and abdomen where the mana nucleus was. Felt like breaking a wall inside my body. It was a type of pain that I haven't felt in a long time. But it was bearable. Enduring this physical pain was much easier than those scars. As the mana cleaned some impurities, the purity of mana was increasing bit by bit. It was a good thing to have an expert to safely guide the mana, or else the pain would have been more than this. And one more thing to consider, that I was still a child who wasn't even 6 years old. So even after taking into account that I was a genius, my physical body might get internal wounds. And seeing me bleed and suffer in pain would be the last thing both of them could do. Dad had to discuss everything with Mom for 2 whole days, just to reassure her that he won't let me get hurt in any way. I could only imagine how much toll he is taking by himself. The amount of concentration and mental power required for this was very high. I might be okay after this, but he will definitely have to rest for some time. If we had let the process go normally and let the body do the work naturally, the current me would not have been able to endure it. Was it a good thing that I awakened myself this early? The thought crossed my mind but disappeared in an instant. I had chosen that path and I can't change it. Well, it was a good thing anyways. Without it, I wouldn't be able to do anything that I had happened this past few months. This is getting more pain dash. Whoo! Suddenly, as if a dam was closed, all the mana stopped moving with a last burst of pain. The white hue around me slowly started to disappear and the mana flowing inside my body started feeling slightly warm. The feeling continued until I felt the hand on my back moving away. Drenched in sweat, I slowly opened my eyes. Looking at my hand, I clenched them into a fist. It was better. I could feel mana much more clearly than before. It was a good feeling. Smiling happily, I turned around to look at my father. Dad. Weedy. As soon as my eyes fell on where he was supposed to be, my heart sank. I shouted in a loud, shaking voice. Dad? He was laying on the floor, without a single moment. I hurriedly tried to stand up, but there was no strength left in my legs. Not knowing what to do, I just crawled by his side with the support of my shaking hands. With tears falling from my eyes, I called him out again and again. But he didn't say anything. I was still in shock, but my mind was clearing up quickly. Calming myself down after much emotional struggle, I took some deep breaths. Finally calming myself down, still holding his hand, I tried to check him up. His breathing was stable, heartbeats too, just his whole body was covered in more sweat than me, especially his forehead. I didn't know it would be this difficult. I had no idea how much mental strength you have to consume when doing something like this, but seeing him, it must be a lot. I waited for him to regain his consciousness. I knew that even if it had been much more difficult than expected, he will definitely wake up after a bit. He said to believe in him, so I will do so till the end. We had trained together, so until he woke up, I wasn't going to go anywhere else. And as I knew, his eyes opened slowly after 5 minutes. With blurry eyes, he looked at me, still not properly conscious. Dad. I looked into those blurry red eyes. They were worried even though their mind wasn't clear fully. Ian? Ian? With a sudden shock, he woke up with wide eyes and a shocked face. Ian, are you okay? Holding my face in his large hands, he worriedly checked me from head to toes. After confirming that everything was okay and even checking my body with some mana to find anything with my core, he sighed in relief. Thank God! The exhausted expression returned to his face. He looked normal from the outside, but mentally, he could still be worn out. With a slight nod, I tried to pull myself up, and with much difficulty I stood up. Holding his hand, I urged him to lay down on my bed. He denied for a few times but gave up after seeing my determined eyes. Even he had no idea that he would faint like that. He had used much more mental power than expected. As soon as he closed his eyes, he fell asleep again. Looking at him with worried eyes, I sighed. Looks like he will be fine after resting for some time. Nothing to worry about. Standing up, I left the room to tell Mom. She wouldn't have heard anything as we had put a sound barrier beforehand. Click. Opening the door of Mom's room, I passed through the wooden door. Mom was sitting on the other side, immersed in her work. The sunlight from the large window behind her illuminated the whole room. Mom! As soon as I called her out, she looked forward in surprise. Ian! She hurriedly stood up and the chair behind her fell backward. She ran towards me and hugged me tightly. With watering eyes, she smiled happily. Thank God! You are okay. She was smiling happily, but I worriedly tried to pull her back. Mom! Dad! Fainted after my successful breakthrough. She released and backed off. With a very confused expression, she asked what I just said. Dad just fainted, but he is okay. I put him to sleep. She instantly understood what I was talking about. Happily shaking her head, she reassured me. Don't worry, your dad will be okay. He's just overreacting. As soon as she said that, we heard another click sound, and the door opened behind us. Nolan! It was Dad. He walked in a perfect state, as if he was never worn out. Was it acting? This good? From Dad? I was shocked, and more than that, I was embarrassed. With a rose-red face, I looked at him. Mom had a very pleased expression on her face. Now this was a prank. A very, very bad one. Dad looked at my angry expression and hurriedly tried to explain himself. Aeon. I didn't. His expression was genuine. I stopped, not looking at him anymore. I looked at my mom. She was on the verge of laughing but was controlling herself with much difficulty. Ian, baby, potions exist for that. Well, they definitely are rare. She blinked at Dad with a thumbs up. He flinched, not expecting something like this. Aeon. IW was all right. I didn't really. He tried to explain himself, but I didn't even look at him. You messed up the wrong Dad. Wrong. There was no way I would let this one slide. He really scared the hell out of me. Aeon? Hump. I turned my face the other way. No way, Dad. No way. It has been 3 days since my breakthrough into Tier 1. And I can clearly see Dad from the corner of my eyes, quietly looking over me. I know that he may not have had any intentions back then, but he pulled that prank knowingly. Well, it may not have really been planned, but he did pretend to be asleep while I left the room in a great hurry. The hell was he thinking, pretending to be hurt? No. Nope. It definitely won't be easy to make me forgive him. You better try harder, Dad. I take my grudges seriously. Though he had tried to apologize many times, I just ignored him. It was maybe his first time ever receiving such cold shoulders. He was also very confused about how to make up to me. Just ignoring him, I closed my eyes. Status window. Name, Axion Cromit. Age 5. Strength, 21. Dexterity, 24. Stamina, 25. Magic power, 24. Intelligence, 28. Luck, 23. Charm, 15. Skills, energy circulation. Origin skill, Sun's Blessing, basic mastery. Mystic Eyes, stage 1. My heartbeat raised as I looked at my screen. These numbers were very high compared to my previous checks. The stats told us about our body and its potential. They were almost always accurate, so we can trust them to gauge someone's strength. I was happy with the increased numbers, especially the amount of MP. Had increased by quite a bit after my breakthrough. Now, I can really try out some magic. After knowing the basics, I now knew how I could use the Tier 1 spells. Unlike Tier 0 spells, which were most basic from Tier 1, we can make the spell on our own by following the basics. We can use incantation, imagination, or prepared magic circles to channel mana and invoke the desired spell. Yes, we had to know a lot of theory in order to do so, but for simple things you know everything about, image casting is a lot easier compared to those long weird incantations. You had to know everything about it. Well, it was at least easy for me. I am going to be practicing in image casting anyway, so it's good that I don't have to learn the theoretical part from Dad for the time being. Who cares? Books call it a higher level spell casting method. I didn't know what was so difficult to imagine about water droplets being made from hydrogen and oxygen and fire being ignited using fuel and oxygen. Aside from the information like this, the only thing restricting them could be mental fortitude. Something that leads to Dad's fainting after sudden high use. A good high amount of mental strength was required in this type of spell casting. Or an absurd talent in handling mana was required to let the mana turn into the spell just from the thoughts. Fortunately, I had a very high amount of mental strength because I was an older person on the inside. But, with the limits of my current body, I wouldn't be able to use even 1/6 of that power. A good mind and a strong body, both are required in this type of spell casting. I can only try to materialize the mana in some shape for now. I mumbled under my breath and looked around for a quick second. Dad wasn't there. Looks like he gave up and went in. Well, I was just standing in this backyard doing nothing for the last 2 hours. Shaking my head, I walked towards the table in the distance and picked up my arrows and bow. Brian burst into the room, crying his eyes out. Crystal-like tears were falling from his beautiful red eyes. His face was a total mess too. He looks absolutely adorable. My breathing quickened, and my heart was also beating faster. He seemed just like a black puppy, crying beside its master to me. Extending my hand to the front unconsciously, I started creasing his messy, long hair. Good thing they weren't that long, or else I would have just started playing with them. Now, my little puppy, calm down. I bent down and embraced him. After crying for a bit more, he calmed down a bit. Hick, hick. And Nolan would even look at me. I held him even more tightly so he couldn't look at my pink face. Goo, goo, goo. I should go thank Ian. A big young man like him, crying on my shoulder like a baby. Ah, heaven. Ahum, ahum. Brian. As much as I wanted to watch this marvelous sight, my dear husband was suffering from my little baby's cold treatment. As a good mom, I had to do something. Achachou? And Nolan? He looked up with his puppy eyes. I just wanted to eat him up right now. But the situation wasn't quite right. I would have to wait for ahem. Look here, Brian. Holding his face, I pulled it closer to mine. Look, just tell me. What would you do if I get upset just like Ian? He calmed down after a bit and looked at me. If you get upset? Yes. What would you do then? But why would you ever get you upset? I won't do anything to make you upset. As much as I wanted to kiss this cute pup, I had to resolve the petty fudge between them faster. I pressed his cheeks a bit harder and smiled. Just answer the damn question. I smiled. He flinched a bit and calmed down perfectly. Looking into my stoic eyes, he answered, I would try to make up with you somehow? And how would you do that? By making you something special or giving some kind of unique gift, right? At least he was sharp and smart. This was why this puppy husband was so perfect. There. You have your answer. I brightly smiled. He had his answer to what he needed to do. Will it work? Oh, it will. Definitely. If you say so, I will try it. He smiled at me. As our faces were too close right now, I could feel his calm breath on my face. Then, he kissed me, completely caught me off guard. Like hell. I was the one who was going to do that. But it felt good. I trained him well. He wouldn't even come close when we first started dating. After an unknown period of time, we stopped. I opened my eyes and saw his beet red face, which had taken the initiative this time. Good work. Now go. We will continue later. Yes. This definitely had to continue and end with a punishment. I had to punish this one. I was the one going to do that. He smiled, looking at my red face. With a small nod, he pulled himself up, with a bit of difficulty. After chatting for a moment, he left the room to find something appropriate for Ian. I returned to my desk and looked back. Outside of the window, Ian was standing with only his bow in his hand. The hell? Why is it this much difficult? For the last half hour, I was trying to materialize my mana into an arrow. I knew an arrow would be a lot easier than a bow and arrow both. Well, it would be stupid to make both and waste a large amount of mana. It was difficult. A lot more difficult than I thought it would be. Just gathering the mana in the environment was taking so much time and consecration that I had already failed 3 times. It was a good experience, but I was beginning to feel sleepy. Deciding to try the last time, I aimed my bow at the target. Gathering the mana in the surrounding by using the mana inside of me, focusing the gathered mana in a single spot, condensing the mana to a certain stage, shaped it into an arrow. The process took a total of 5 seconds, and this time it was different. Unlike the previous attempts, the mana this time did not scatter. But it was definitely much thinner than what an arrow should be. Opening my eyes and looking at a thin and almost transparent mana in the shape of almost an arrow, I sighed. It was a success. Now all that was left was perfect, the thing I had just done. I released the arrow. It flew halfway to the target but then started to disappear, slowly disintegrating into the surroundings. I slowly sat down. It was not easy to do this, but it was also not something I couldn't do. Maybe 2 days? Yes. That much should be enough to master this. And maybe, by that time, Dad would figure something. Ian. Dad's voice came from behind me. I wanted to look back, but I didn't do so and just sat there. He came and sat beside me. With a very sad voice, he apologized once again. Now, not even he knew what he was apologizing for. This time when I didn't give him the answer, unlike before, he took out a small box from his item box. It was a small red box. Placing the red box before me, he apologized again. Sorry. This is just a gift from me. If you don't want to forgive me, then don't say anything. But just accept this. I wanted to give you one of these for a long time. He turned his head and waited for my reply. Curious, I picked up the red box and opened it. A metallic silver bracelet with some blue patterns engraved on it rested inside the box. Taking it out and observing it for a bit, I understood what it was. And I loved this gift. Good enough. I nodded. As soon as I spoke, he turned his head towards me like a spring with wide eyes. Ian, did you talk? You talked. Does this mean? He looked at me with anticipation. Yes, you are forgiven. Yes. He hugged me and lifted me up. Oh, you poor Dad. I never intended to continue this cold treatment for much longer. Well, just 3 weeks would have been enough. But this was good too. Dad, let's go in now. I'm hungry. And sleepy too. He didn't react to this much. He was just that happy. After a very long half hour, he got back to normal. We entered inside and soon spotted Mom. She was sitting on the table in the kitchen, brightly smiling at us. I knew that the idea of a gift was from Mom at the very least. Dad couldn't come up with something like this on his own, but the gift was from him. Ian. Thank you. Mom said in a very happy voice. Confused me greatly. Why is she thanking me? Was it fun watching Dad in agony? Weird taste indeed. I shook my head, sighing in exhaustion. Well, the bracelet will be a convenient thing. Today was a good and eventful day. As always, standing in the garden, I straightened my back and looked at the target in front of me. God, if I were some protagonist of a novel, starting every chapter with the same line every time like this, what would the readers do? I sighed in relief that I wasn't some main protagonist, saving the world. Hell no. Instead of fighting with my life on the line and saving a world, I would travel this new world. Yes, gaining strength was good, definitely, but I would prefer not to fight unnecessarily if it's not for the sake of protecting something close to me. As for today's agenda, it was a day of demonstration. It has been 4 weeks since Dad and I resolved our patty fight. He taught me many things during this time. Now I had learned the full basics of Tier 1, magic circles, and the theory of energy conversion for it. That made it a lot easier to practice different types of spells. Of course, I did that in just a week, which was enough for Dad to lose his mind 3 whole times. And that number was still okay. Mom and I managed him, somehow. Well, after the theory lessons, we did many things like discussing different spells, practicing them, and most importantly, making some changes. I was mainly an archer, and archers got to shoot arrows. So, I turned any possible spell Dad taught me and I tried to learn on my own into arrow forms. This was definitely difficult as each one of them took days or more just to have its form altered. They were all long-distance spells or mid-range spells in most cases. Having them turned into the form of a magic arrow was a lot more convenient for a mainly long-range damage dealer like me. I can materialize the spell in the form of an arrow instead of a magic circle or incantation by changing its form while casting. Knowing the basics helped a lot, but for me who was going to mainly use image casting, which took a lot of mental power into account, knowing the basics helped much more. And Dad taught me a very important thing about image casting: willpower and clear imagination. If my will was powerful, the image casting becomes much easier. It helped me learn the spells much easier as my will was a lot stronger than an average mage. That was a given as the hunger to learn magic was very great in me. The most basic thing for the people of this world didn't exist in my late world. So, someone like me would be very hungry to learn new things. And my imagination is, let's say, very vivid. And so, Surprising Dad over a dozen times this past few weeks and understanding a total of 9 new Tier 1 spells, I was going to show them the result of my hard work today. Naturally, they are worried as parents, but Mom is a bit more worried and Dad has an anticipating look. I waved at them in the distance, smiling brightly as I turned to face the many targets set at different distances. This was just a fun activity, but if I make any mistakes, I will definitely not get even a scratch thanks to Mom's special clothes. After the first accident with enchanted arrows, Mom specifically ordered me to wear this every time I am practicing. Stretching the string of the bow, which was almost 1 meter in height, I focused on one of the red-white wooden targets. Inhaling a long breath, I started to gather mana on my fingertips. I condensed and shaped it, and quickly, a blue arrow shining like light appeared on my bow.
Mana Arrow.
The first spell I learned on my own was similar to Tier 1 magic spell, Mana Blade. It condenses the mana and molds it into a temporary solid object. It could be considered a bit difficult for those who have just started learning magic recently. It definitely wasn't easy. Took me for whole days. Releasing the arrow, I also released the long-held breath. I already knew what was going to happen to the target, so I wasn't worried at all. And just as I thought, as soon as the arrow left the bow with a swish sound, it reached the target and pierced it in an instant. Then it slowly disintegrated into the air. This was the first spell. Amazing, Ian! Dad shouted happily, but Mom didn't say anything and just smiled softly. Okay. Then the next one should be the most common fire arrow of other fantasy worlds. But here, this arrow is from one of the most difficult spells for beginners. It's good that I have my otherworldly wisdom to help me. It wasn't that hard for me as it took less time to understand those spells than other ones. I stretched my bowstring again. To ignite a fire, we need 2 main components, fuel and oxygen. If we can control the amount required and the atmosphere around it, it molds in the desired shape. Currently, I could only use fire mana as fuel, so creating cool-looking blue flames had to wait a very long time. Closing my eyes, I gathered fire and wind-type mana on my bow. It was a good thing that I enchanted my bow to be more strong, so it can now easily handle this type of heat and much more. The mana burned and turned into a small line of fire and then turned into an arrow. The arrow shot forth and stuck the isolated target in the distance. And as soon as it struck the target, the whole disk of wood was set on fire. A fire burned on the wooden log and quickly started to spread. Without waiting much, I prepared a water arrow. It was much easier than the fire-type spell. I shot it on the burning fire, and after just 3 splashing arrows of waster, the fire died down. Then, without wasting much time, I stretched the bowstring again and gathered only wind-type mana particles, and after quickly compressing it for a bit, I released it. The recoil this time was great as I had to take 2 steps back. The transparent arrow of wind stuck to the wood and it cut the circle into 4 equal parts, just like cutting a pizza into 4 slices. As much as I wanted to call it pizza-cutting arrow, I had to call it wind blade in arrow form. In the future, well, maybe I will. Not for the time being at least. Now, putting my one hand on the ground, I prepared earth-type mana. Using stone creation, I summoned 2 arrows made of rock. This was an easy spell as all it did was create some stones. If you use more willpower and create a perfect image in your mind, the rock's shape can be changed into anything. Taking out slightly heavy arrows from the ground, I adjusted them and shot towards the closer targets. And they were bullseye, exactly at the center. These main elemental arrows of fire, water, wind, and earth took a large amount of mana. As I shot all 4 of them in quick succession, I used quite a lot of mana and concentration in a short amount of time. I was a bit exhausted, so I sat down for a bit. Mom and Dad asked me if I was okay, and I assured them that I was fine. They were amazed by this short performance. Mom especially looked happy as she cheered me up. She was still worried but looked assured. Dad was amazed with his mouth open for a while, even after being the one to teach me most of these things. I put some mana into the bracelet on my right arm and the bow in my hand disappeared. This bracelet was a storage device. It worked the same as a dimension storage that high mages use. By using skill stones of storage-related skills like item box as the base and some other materials, one can create a storage device that would activate by using mana. My bracelet was one of the smallest of the storage devices, but it could still store my bow, arrows, and some other small things. It couldn't be as large as Dad's item box. Skill as one skill stone could be used to make multiple storage devices. Skill stones are very unique, and these things as a full stone, if absorbed by someone, could grant them that specific skill. Skills could be used without large mana usages. They are like automated spells of high quality which can be used with any type of energy input. They don't require any type of chant, magic circle, or precise imagination. Just saying or thinking to trigger the spell is all it takes to activate it. But we can't control the output of a skill like we can with spells. If a skill is triggered, then it would take the same amount of energy every time. That's why large-scale or attack-type skills have to be used in certain situations. If one uses a skill that requires a large amount of energy in a situation where he doesn't have the required amount, the body would sacrifice soul energy. Soul energy, being the fundamental energy of the world, is something that is present in every creature of this world. Losing even a little can cause life-threatening situations. So, if you don't absorb the stone and divide it with specific craftsmanship type skills, you can use it in many different types of equipment. Taking out a small glass bottle, I gulped down the blue liquid in it. It was a basic mana recovery potion. Mom had filled my bracelets all of the retaining space with all types of potions. There were rare and costly ones too. Even Dad was a bit surprised to see them, but not that much. I knew Mom had her own storage device, but even I didn't know what treasure could be in there. Ignoring these useless thoughts, I stood up again. My mana also recovered fully with just one potion. Signaling Mom and Dad, I took out the bow and took the position again. There were still 4 spells left to demonstrate. After the 4 common elemental spells, the next was light and darkness. Being a rare affinity, both of them have different uses than the normal spells. It was very fascinating to learn about this too. Light and darkness type mana started moving towards my fingers on the bowstring. Starting from the bowstring, an arrow of light slowly materialized on the bow. After a short while, a black arrow of darkness appeared just below the arrow of light. I turned away from the targets and towered where my parents were. Mom was startled to see me suddenly turn around as her eyes widened. Dad, on the other hand, already knew I would do something like that. I released the arrow of light first. It flew just above their heads and burst out in a big boom of light. It was a flash arrow, mostly used when blinding a weak opponent. Dad was fine in that big flash of light, and Mom was wearing some weird-looking sunglasses. We had sunglasses here? Looks like I don't really know much about this world after all. Not thinking much about it, I released the dark-colored arrow. It was one of my own creations, in some way at least. The arrow did not go upwards and instead passed through the gap between Mom and Dad, striking their shadows instead. The shadows behind them started to move slowly. They turned into a pitch-black rectangle first. Then slowly, a picture started to take place on the black canvas. With the help of white light still coming from the arrow of light, trees, a white moon, and an owl sitting on a large tree appeared on it. A combination of white and black was good. It was only a childish drowning for now, but it looked enough to please a parent. I call this spell arrow Knight's Canvas. Though it was derived from a Tier 1 spell called Shadow Manipulation, it was much more eye-pleasing. And just as I thought, let alone Mom, even Dad was surprised to see the drawing. Creating a night scene with black and white was a good idea, although I wanted to do something much more than this one. It will take time and a great effort. Maybe I could create something close to those masterpieces of my previous life. I had a great interest in art, so I wanted to recreate something close to those real paintings which, just from a look, could tell many stories and express emotions. Well, if I could, then it will be a check on my old bucket list. Oh, I will have to make a new bucket list for this world. Back to the present, I clenched my fist tightly behind my back. This was much more difficult than the previous spells combined. Even though it looked much easier than the previous spells, it consumed more mana and willpower than the previous spells. As if a huge bell was ringing in my head ached. Even I didn't know maintaining an image for just 5 seconds could put so much burden on my mind. I miscalculated this one. Dad had an idea about it already. As I looked at him with a small smile, he narrowed his eyes and looked straight into mine. Small drops of sweat ran down my back. But just then, Mom threw something in my direction. I almost missed it when it just got caught in my desperate grabbing attempts. Mom! I could have missed it. How can you throw a glass bottle like T-dash? I suddenly stopped shouting and looked at my mom's angry smile. There was some worry but even more anger for me. Don't say anything and just drink it first. Fool! I flinched and looked at the bottle she had thrown at me. It was a water-like transparent potion with a familiar cross design. I recognized that crest as the Holy Kingdom's crest. And the bottle was an intermediate potion for magic power recovery. It not only recovered mana but also the mental strength that I lost during casting. This was an extremely rare and expensive thing, and it was only available in very limited numbers. The look in her eyes was very furious, so I had no choice but to silently drink it. If I so much as try to say something, I believed that I won't be able to practice for a long time. As soon as I put the bottle in my mouth and it touched my tongue, my mind started to clear up. The effect was amazingly fast. And after drinking that, I recovered completely. As if the headache never existed, it vanished and my mana also returned to full. I looked at her with surprised, filed eyes. But the anger was still there in her eyes. Those furious, deep brown eyes were nerve-wracking. A shiver ran down my spine as I looked at her. But it vanished after a second. Exhaling deeply, she returned her gaze to me. You dummy! Don't do stunts like that again. But it was good, so I will let you off, only this time. She had a face as red as a rose. Anger and embarrassment were visible on her beautiful face. Dad glanced at her as if it was cute. But Mom caught him looking and shot him a furious gaze. He turned back to the front with his lips tightly shut. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your gracious praise, I shouted. Straightening my back, I shouted. I bowed down and went back to my place. There were some spells left to show. And, fortunately, they didn't stop me. I can't use many potions at once, so I tried to finish it quickly. Proper rest was necessary to recover fully. For the second last spell, Arrow, I tightened my gloves. It was going to be freezing. Gathering water elemental mana on the bowstring, I gathered water, condensed it a bit to mold in the shape of an arrow, removed the head, and frozen it. Rather than using ice elemental mana directly, using the water and then turning it into ice is more simple and more convenient. This was one of the easiest spells of the bunch for today. A plain and normal ice arrow. Not minding the process after that, I prepared for the final of today's demonstration. Turning my head towards Dad, I spoke while smiling mysteriously. Dad, I completed that one. His eyes widened in surprise. With a shock-filled smile, he shouted back. Really? How? The excited smile on his face was very different. Mom knew this smile as it only appeared when Dad was truly excited about something. Mom! Sorry, but you will like to see this more than the painting. I apologized in advance, so it won't be much problem afterward. She was now surprised, but before she could say anything, we both heard a snapping of fingers. After that, a transparent barrier engulfed the entire house. And a small one appeared around me too. We both jolted our heads toward Dad. Don't worry and go ahead. I believe you. He held Mom's hand and smiled brightly. Mom was startled but stopped and didn't say anything. I nodded and took out a bunch of arrows from my bracelet. They all had patterns of different colors. They looked like a rainbow in my hand. A small square container was attached to each one of them. Mom flinched as soon as I took them out. A thought suddenly crossed her mind as she looked at Dad's nostalgic expression. No way. He enchanted the high-level spell? Fireworks? That's not possible, right? It's a Tier 3 special spell of fire mages. I could read the thoughts on her face for the first time. She was that much shocked. Well, preparing something like this at my level was actually almost impossible, but my idea to use different color-inducing materials also surprised Dad. It was a good idea, but even he never thought that I will be able to complete the enchanting process so quickly. It should be thanks to him anyways. If we didn't do that 3-arrow combination back then, I wouldn't be able to master the commanding type enchantments. Creating a specific shape and coding detonating time, as well as the distribution of the materials in the small containers, was very difficult. It was one of my best works, completed on a tight deadline. It was almost twilight right now. I checked my protection gears one last time and fired the arrows upwards with the help of wind mana particles. After reaching a safe point, it blasted with a cracking boom. Boom! A fine triangular shape appeared in the air. It had purple, blue, and yellow colors. Just like that, I shot 5 more arrows in a short time of 3 minutes. But those 3 minutes lasted much longer in their mind. It was more special to them than any other art. It wasn't just longing in their eyes, but also admiration. Seeing these fireworks brought back a moment, a cherished sight of the past. With almost filling Mom's eyes with tears, the show continued. As if living that moment again, they just stood there, almost forgetting to even blink. Ian, thank you. After I finished the demonstration of the last spell for today, Mom came closer and sat beside me. Dad also sat on the other side of Mom as both of them still looked at the sky. The nostalgic look in their eyes was not gone completely. It made me curious for the first time about them. Why would something like this be so much special to them? Mom glanced at me and instantly caught on. She asked in her usual mischievous tone, which was unusually happier. Ian, do you want to know why Mommy and Daddy like fireworks so much? I thought that the question and tone didn't fit the situation quite well, but after hearing Dad's sudden voice, I grasped why she said it like that. And Nolan? Is it really necessary to talk about tea that now? As I looked at him, one thought unexpectedly crossed my mind. Holy hell! He was as red as a rose. This was the most embarrassed I had ever seen him. And he looked so damn cute that even I would fall for him. How did Mom get her hands on such beauty? Was everyone else blind to notice this piece of art, or am I the only one underestimating the beauty standards of this world? Those questions became deeper as Mom teased him more. Oh, it definitely is. Ian asked about something for the first time. I should tell him the great tale of his dad. Don't you think so too? Darling, he never asked. But if you want to, then it can't be helped. My eyes shone as he said that, with that particular expression being chocolate in the cake. Then let's start. Ian, listen carefully. This might be one of the most interesting stories you would have ever heard. Right? Darling. Yes. He answered with a positively shy expression. His ears were clearly red as I watched them in the last rays of the setting sun. Okay then, where should I start? It was just a normal day in the imperial capital. Brian shouting. I waved my hand as I spotted the familiar dark blue mage robe. It was a hooded cape with golden embroidery. A silver, triangular badge of a high-ranking adventurer was pinned on it. Miss Nolan. He hurried towards me and then reached the destination. I'm sorry, Miss Nolan. Did you wait for a long time? He was truly sorry from his tone. His work took a bit longer than I expected. You made me wait. I'm sorry, but you will have to compensate me for my lost time. It wasn't polite to make a lady wait for 6 minutes, right? That time was precious for someone like me. I do want proper compensation.
Akis vechem.
A quiet dinner together would be good enough. He looked disappointed and more apologetic than before. Just that much cute. With his head down, he apologized again. I'm really sorry, Miss Nolan, but the preparation took longer than I expected. A surprised expression appeared on my face. Preparation? Oh, are you talking about going to the forest lake? They were going to escort a few merchants to the center area of the northern forest of Agnes. In the middle of this small forest area was a huge lake. One could find many rare herbs and small energy beasts around it, so hired adventurers were largely in demand. Yes, It is a good opportunity for all of the adventurers. If we get lucky, we might find a beast core and strick it rich. He was very excited about this. This was a monthly escort mission, so they get very excited just from getting a chance to be a part of it. You look excited. As he was speaking, the air around him changed to an excited wolf. In the last 9 months, I had known him. This wasn't the first time this happened. As if to loathe every one of those beasts, he acted like this whenever he had the chance to hunt them. I knew what the reason behind that was, so I didn't mind that, but I had to help him with this matter. Revenge is sweet, but even sweet could corrupt the teeth if taken in frequent, large amounts. And he knew I didn't like that thing, so he immediately returned to normal. Ah, sorry. I just got carried away. He gasped after seeing my angry eyes. A cold shiver ran down this Tier 5 mage's spine. She is something else. I haven't really felt it many times, but this should be called authority, right? Although they had known each other for 9 months now, he didn't really know much about her. Just that she was also a merchant. But he felt happy around her. As if he could open up. As if he was already an open book for her to read. I could really just read him. The rose-red face of embarrassment would say everything. Hump. Anyway, you will have to take care of me on the trip. Yes, I will wait. What did you just say? Though he had straightened his back to give the answer, a confused expression clouded his face as he thought about what I just said. Oh, did I forget to mention that I was also one of the merchants on this trip? Well, you know now. So, please take good care of me. He had a large frown on his face, saying something like, How? They are all famous merchants under one of the largest merchant groups? Just who is Dash? Then that frown disappeared and he shook his head. It doesn't matter. Now that she is part of the caravan, I will have to protect her. She is my Dash. Though he was just going to think about what would our relationship be called, he stopped. She rapidly shook his head to erase those thoughts with an embarrassed face. Even I had no idea what would this relationship be called. Though we had walked around the capital doing almost everything friends would do, my heart wanted something more than that. But I had decided to give this full time. Time to be courageous enough to know what he really felt. Okay then, Miss Nolan. I will protect you to the best of my abilities. Do not worry about anything. He was confident. The look in his eyes said he would do anything to protect. If father saw him like this, would he be proud or be happy? I wanted to introduce him to my father, but it wasn't time yet, unless he realized his heart. Okay. I believe in you, so let's go now. My legs will start hurting if we stand here any longer. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go. We started walking. We had a lunch date today. Well, going on a date wouldn't mean you love that person. Not in this era, at least. On the other hand, Brian's heart was pounding like crazy. From the time he saw her for the first time, his heart would react like this every time he saw her. This was a very weird feeling. He didn't know how to express it, but he had his fears. His life until meeting her wasn't something anyone could understand. But if it was her, maybe we are here to. My sweet, cheerful voice brought him back to reality. We had reached the quiet and beautiful cafe, which was very famous for its special lunch sandwiches. There weren't many people around, so we got a good place at the back all to ourselves. A young waitress came to get our orders, and after a bit of thinking, we placed our orders. We quietly sat there, diving into each other's eyes. His red eyes were slightly reflected in my clear brown eyes. Though we were both wearing a cape with a hood, our faces were visible. And my hair was now normal brown. He didn't know why she started using an artifact to change her appearance, but he didn't ask her when he himself was using a magic mask. The first encounter was the weird one. After that day, we mostly met with this disguise when outside. He didn't know about me, but his own appearance has always been a problem. Not every beautiful person wanted their beauty. Some might dislike it, and for some, it might be one of the most bothersome things. I had somewhat similar thoughts, but I wanted one more thing. How does that masterpiece of a face look without a cape and a mask? And without any ahem? I stopped my thoughts from running wild as I dived into those red, ruby-like eyes. Though beautiful, they had sadness. Though bright, they contained suffering. Though lonely, they now contained hope. I wasn't sure if I was that hope, but seeing him happy made my heart warm. The large sandwich was served shortly after, but an unexpected comment escaped his mouth. I think I can make it a bit better than this one. My eyes intently shone on that unconscious comment. I would love to try your cooking sometime. He flinched on that comment, almost letting go of that large sandwich. What should I wear? A normal dress? A merchant's normal outfit? Should I just send them all away and have a private talk about us? Ahem. No, Nolan. Be patient. I sighed, and a disappointed expression clouded my face. Though I had an unparalleled degree of patience after working as a merchant for this long time. Now, it was running low. The pain in my heart was growing beyond my control. Now I was afraid. In the end, I might have to think of the worst-case scenario. But that path was not something I could even think about. The what-ifs would break me, and I knew that very well. Why did it have to be that beautiful son of a no? Let's not curse my only possible late mother-in-law. Everyone had scars, and I had seen his. They were just glances, but even they were painful. Those scars on one's heart. I had seen his in those clear, lonely eyes. In his speech, he would break suddenly without any reason. His presence pushed away anyone getting near those deep scars. I feared. It was something dark, cold, and lonely. I couldn't shake this feeling that, if we were to get separated, if he were to get away, neither of us would be able to live normally. Life will just have that emptiness if that really happened. Hurry up, dummy. I stood by my large window, glancing at the lonely moon. Though it looked like he had countless stars to talk with, it wasn't true. He was here, and those twinkling little stars were far, far away. He didn't have anyone, and maybe he never will. But it might not be the case for me. I hoped. Moon, oh moon, when do you think my time would come? Or, are you enjoying seeing me like this? As if to have got caught, the bastard moon hid behind a large gray cloud. I sighed deeply, just standing by the window and staring at the ever-changing sky. Asterisk. A person with a long beard and short hair looked up from the garden before the house. A beautiful flower garden filled with different, beautiful plants. Some of them had glowing flowers and leaves, enhancing the beauty of the large fountain in the middle. His shining blue eyes reflected the image of a beautiful, young maiden on the large window. Her beautiful blonde hair slowly danced with the cold night's wind. Though she looked stoic, her eyes contained sadness. The scene looked spectacular for anyone, from any angle. Young love, beautiful and yet painful, he said softly as he sat beside another person. With long, sea-blue hair and light brown eyes, reflecting the light of the countless stars in the sky, she smiled and replied in a very soft as well as caring tone. Filled with love and affection. Her voice had some nostalgic feel to it. Reminds me of someone, right? Javi? Definitely. A fool that knew nothing. Found someone he still thinks he is unworthy of. He smiled. A smile that could warm your heart. A smile that would make you feel at home. Smile. As if your own parent. She gently caressed his head. With those soft, smooth, gentle hands. He smiled again, grabbing her hand and kissing it gently. She is tough, and that someone special to her looks to be a fool. A fool to not understand the language of the heart. Though his words were harsh, his smile had gotten even more gentle than before. I think he is a good person, and I'm very sure it won't be like someone who took 3 years to. Her eyes had unparalleled certainty, as if she knew anything would be much better than what they had. Ha ha! He softly laughed. Even with his strong, large body, the air around him was unnaturally approachable. I hope she finally met the one, her special someone. Seeing my lovely, cold-hearted daughter being so warm, it makes me happy. He sighed with a smile. Finally, he could be less worried now. Love changes people, reminds me of a certain someone. One that, though took all the time in the world, changed so much that people sometimes forget the golden hammer, was also called Tyrant of Maris. She chuckled, reminiscing of those old days. Nothing was like a present back in the times. Well, if the one waiting has that much patience, what else would you expect? He looked up, closing his eyes. He held her hand again, interlocking his finger with hers. She looked up towards the window. Now no one was there. The beautiful maiden was gone. Her little maiden was gone. I have this feeling that they will be together very soon. Then I look forward to meeting that unlucky yet luckiest person. He better be prepared for that day. He laughed. He was happy. He will be having fun with his future son-in-law. She sighed as she looked at him. Please go easy on them. No, I will have to be there as well. She worriedly shook her head as she looked at his, a bit different smile. He just smiled and stood up from the fine wooden bench. Let's go in, my beloved Grizz. These cold winds are jealous of us today. You just... She sighed in defeat and took his hand. In a fairly large room of a huge building, a tall man with glossy, shoulder-long hair stood by his bed. Removing his plain white mask, he threw it on the bed, revealing his beautiful face. With his plain young face without any hair or impurities, he looked mouth-watering. His ruby-red eyes were chocolates on the cake. He slowly opened his buttons, removed his shirt, and put it on the other side of a bed. With a well-built muscular body, beautiful abs, and many scars that would shock anyone. Some were deep and some were very small. As if to have fought many battles, everyone had a special story behind them. He looked at himself in the mirror. With a disgusted look, he immediately turned back and put on a bathing cloth. A beautiful face and a scar-ridden body. Blessing of the world. No, I laughed. Though they were special, I didn't like them much. I wasn't even planning to keep them for long. As long as I had enough money to buy that special potion, I was going to erase them. Now, I wanted to change. Change for myself and change for the one that guided me back into this cruel world. Though I still didn't know what my heart wanted, what I wanted. But I knew. It at least wanted something. And that was enough. Way better than wandering aimlessly, killing unnecessary beasts, bearing a meaningless hatred, hurting myself for no reason at all. It would be better. No, wouldn't it be best to get hurt while protecting someone? Someone special.
Barum. Barum.
This was strange. Every time I thought about her, my heart would run wild. The way she smiles, the way she laughs, the way she teases me, even her soft hands and those hard fingertips. Maybe I knew what this feeling was. Maybe I knew but didn't want to acknowledge it. This strange feeling, I had heard about it. And that was the reason. I feared it. I somehow knew she felt this way too, and that she was waiting for me. Waiting for me to acknowledge myself, the past, and possibly the future. I wasn't strong enough to let those feelings go. I can't. Who? I sighed deeply as I lay in the bathtub. The warm water cleansed my body and removed the fatigue. Can I do that? Am I good enough? It will be okay, right? My mind was a mess. Tomorrow is the day of departure. Maybe this trip will give me some insight into my heart. Tomorrow. I closed my eyes. The heat of the water was perfect to take a small nap. Then suddenly, a cold shiver ran down his spine. This type of thing only happened when someone was thinking about you. Well, that was what people said anyways. But then, a thought crossed my mind. Could it be Miss Nolan? Then am I really right about... Well, forget it. It might just be a coincidence. I shook my head and got out of the tub. Now that my nap was interrupted, I had to check everything last time. I came out and put new pair of clothes. Confirming that everything was perfect, I sat down on the bed. Looking out of the window, I spotted the bright blue moon coming out of some gray clouds. It looked beautiful but still lonely. It had many large craters but it still shined brightly. He was alone but he didn't reject the company of faraway stars. Lonely but happy. He gave happiness to those who had someone. He cheered them. It was cheering for me too. Thinking this gave me more courage. A large number of people had gathered before the huge gates of the imperial capital. Large carriages, finely dressed merchants, adventurers with armors, swords, spears, and magicians in their robes were gathered. Behind them was a bustling market. People were buying and selling different things at different stalls and shops. The gates were small compared to other gates in the cardinal directions, as they were just for the use of the merchants like them to exit the city in large groups. People weren't paying much attention to them, as it was a sight they were used to. The caravan was divided into 6 different groups. Every group contains its own different merchant leaders, workers, and adventurers. Monster body parts belonged to the merchants after the exploration, and if a core or skill stone was miraculously found, then they can sell it to that merchant if they want. These were simple things and everyone knew about them. In the second last place, a man wearing a plain white mask stood beside a girl with normal brown hair and brown eyes. They both stood by the leader's carriage, which clearly stood out the most. Just like the other 5, everyone in the group maintained their distance from the masked man in the blue robe. This was a normal reaction from the people after seeing this masked man. His visible red eyes were the reason everyone in the capital knew about him. Knew about the crazy, red-eyed hunter. But the girl standing by his side was weird. She talked with him as if they know each other quite well. He held a very high rank among adventurers present, so no one tried to bother them. Hugh, looks like we will be departing soon. Brian, please take good care of me. Do not worry, miss. This won't even be that big of a deal. In any case, just stay by the carriage. The barrier is strong enough to stand against even yellow-ranked beasts. He was calm and confident. Earlier, he unconsciously got too excited, and at exactly that moment, I arrived. His eyes met mine, and that excitement instantly turned into seriousness. He was serious about protecting me. He wanted to protect me. It meant that he was starting to accept the truth. He was fighting with his lonely past, fighting for hope, fighting to accept the present. This was a very positive sign. We will depart in 5 minutes. Someone shouted from the front and brought me back. Miss Nolan, it looks like I will have to go and check up on the leader for now. Please wait for me. I will be back as quickly as possible. Even he didn't know why he was saying that right now. As one of the top adventurers, he should stick to the leader's side, but he told her he would come back to her. Though unconsciously he said what he wanted. But I shook my head. You won't have to. I am here as the leader's assistant, so I will be with him all the time. Her cheerful, happy smile made him blush under his mask. I noticed the changes and an excited smile appeared on my face instantly. I want to see that face. Those cute red expressions, him hiding behind his hand, that tough face, and ahem. If I want, then I should know. Then let's go. I grabbed his hand and dragged him inside the large, spacious carriage. There, a middle-aged man with a thin body and black mustache was sitting silently reading some papers. He had unique dark green hair, like dark leaves. His eyes, however, were simple brown. Upon noticing us, he put the papers down and stood up. He gracefully bowed his head and introduced himself in a respectful voice. Greetings, Miss Nolan. Hello to you too, Sir Brian. I am the merchant leader of the 5th group, Cody Cortez. Thank you for joining me on this small journey. He spoke respectfully, which was very, very strange. Why would a merchant leader bow to someone like us? Is it because I'm famous, or is he just that much polite? A confused expression appeared on his face. I could see the confusion in his eyes. Though I instructed this old man to act as if he don't know me, he was the only one that could have helped me in this way. He was a kind, loyal, and sharp person among these groups of merchants. He was also someone I could trust. Hello, sir. It's nice to meet you too. We will be in your care for the time being. Replying to him, we all sat down on the soft carriage seats. The interior of the carriage was quite spacious. It had space equal to a small room. It was a good large space even though we were sitting on the same seat. I was neutrally happy with this development, but he had different thoughts. I have to protect her, That's why we are sitting on the same seat.
Y.
That's the reason. He didn't know why, but his body moved by her side on its own. He convinced himself and calmed down. After a moment, the carriages started moving. The creatures pulling the carriages were close to horses, but they had much larger bodies than any normal horses. They were mana beasts called Lesser Earth Horse. I didn't know much about them, but they were commonly used by rich people like these merchant leaders. Now our trip starts, he thought. Excitement is clearly visible in his eyes. Let's see how this goes. I pressed his hand, which I was holding from when we entered the carriage. Not minding us, Mr. Cody silently read his papers. By a large road in an open area, a large camp was set up. Bonfires were starting in many different places one by one. People were cooking food and talking loudly. Everyone seemed cheerful as they all had a bright expressions on their faces. This was the first camp of the caravan and a good place to make new connections and friends. Here, on a corner of the campsite, 3 people were sitting around a finely set campfire, waiting for the masked person to finish cooking. He was making a simple chicken stew, but the aroma oozing out of the pot was mouth-watering. Even people from different groups near them were blankly staring at them with envious eyes. If only the fragrance was this good, then how good the taste would be. People wanted to go and just steal the pot from this person. But everyone here valued their lives. Not a single one of them was capable of going against a Tier 5 magician. The person in question, though, noticed their gazes. He didn't give a damn to them. Right now, he was extremely focused on making the food for a single special someone. He took the best ingredients, made the best fire with magic, and cleared the whole place so that it would be the best campsite one has ever seen. He did all that without knowing why he was doing that. But he was satisfied with it. After a long wait, the fire slowed and the aroma coming from the pot intensified multiple times. The water in the bystander's mouth increased, but with just a single glare, he chased everyone away. Serving the thick orange-red stew with big chicken pieces in a bowl, he decorated it on the small table before the 2 individuals sitting by the fire. The young lady picked up her spoon and knife with a very calm expression. The meat, like butter, is sliced in an instant. It was perfectly cooked. She took a small bite of meat and thick broth in a slow, anticipating look. As soon as the food entered her mouth, like an exploration, many different flavors exploded in her mouth. A very surprised expression clouded her face. She had eaten with the royal family in the royal palace, but this thing right in front of her was on almost that level. Still, there was something more about this. Something she had only felt at home. Like her mother's cooking, but still a bit different. Cooking of the person you have fallen for? Maybe. With an anticipating gaze, he asked, "How's it? Do you like it?" He was nervous. Like her word meant the most to him and not the captain sitting beside her. "I like it. I love this. I love you too." She was just happy. This was a special moment for her. If just there weren't so many people here, she might just have. Calming herself, she looked at him with a serious gaze. "Brian, do you really think this is cooking?" Her serious gaze was a piece of bad news for him. At least he thought it was.
Y.
He was very confident in his cooking, so he wasn't discouraged or disappointed. He was confused. What was she trying to say? She then shook her head and happily explained. "No, Brian. This is sorcery. How can something so simple be so good? I really love it. I am going to eat it all." He released a long breath. Smiling brightly, he thanked her. And then, he finally looked at Captain Cody. He was eating his food with a bright smile. He was elegant while eating too. When the one to cook such a delicious dish looked up at him, he only gave him a small thumbs up, without saying anything, with a delighted smile. He was embarrassed but happy. Her happily eating face made him happy. This was a candle, burning brightly in his darkness. In the dark of night, sitting under the glittering stars, with a brightly burning bonfire in front of them, 2 people were sitting outside the tenants. There was an awkward silence between them. Though they were sitting quite a distance away from each other, that seemed weird too. It was late and there weren't many people around. The wind was quietly blowing between trees and leaves were dancing with it. Sitting quietly by the bonfire, the masked man with a magician's robe spoke in a quiet voice. "Miss Nolan, you should go to sleep now. Shouldn't you sleep a bit too?" she asked with a worried tone. "I have to keep guarding here and I don't sleep much anyway." His voice carried helplessness and tiredness as he replied. "And why don't you sleep much?" she asked again anxiously. Her eyes were fixed on his mask and those red eyes. She had some worry in those deep brown eyes. But maybe she already knew the answer. Even still, she wanted to hear the full story. With a very sorrowful expression, he snapped his fingers. A blue, green, and red barrier enveloped them. "It's always been like that way. When I was little," he started talking about his past. For the first time, he was telling someone what had happened to him, to his family, to his life. This wasn't something pleasant, something he would never want to recall ever again. But right now, he wanted to speak. He wanted to tell this person before him what agony he had felt, being by himself. He wanted to share his darkness with the small glimpse of light in front of him. She listened quietly. She focused on every single word, every single emotion, and absorbed them. It was painful. She didn't know how, just how can someone live with no one to talk to, no one to share his feelings, and no one to be by his side. No one to support, no one to truly call a friend. There was no one who truly knew about the person before her. He talked until he couldn't hold those sparkling crystals of tears back. They were tears that had always been in those beautiful eyes, always clinging to the ends of them. They never dried out and always kept his eyes moist. Until one day, an unrealistic thing called fate brought him to someone. Someone who made his cold, lonely self warm, like a spring breeze passing through a riverbank, calming as well as soothing. He was able to gather courage to escape a prison he created himself, a prison binding him to his past, the past that he never escaped, past that made him who he was right now. But he never wanted this. He never wanted to be called a hunter who massacred any and all beast villages he saw. The unnecessary bloodshed he did was something he wanted to forget. But this prison chained him. He did everything he could until one day, that fate brought him to her. He felt warm. He felt happy. He didn't feel lonely. He felt a hope to live. And now, miraculously, he was with that person, telling her about the unknowns that he himself thought he had long forgotten. He cried but never stopped until he had said all that he wanted. She listened with wide eyes. Tears were flowing out of them unnaturally, but she still heard every single thing he said. This was strange for her too. She had gone through many things in her life, but right now was something different. She was feeling someone else's emotions. She was bathing in the sorrows of a person she thought she knew. She was crying, not only because the things that happened to the person before her were cruel. No, she was crying because she felt his emotions. She felt the sorrow, the anger, and the coldness of those words. They were devastating, at least for her. And when he stopped talking, when he was done with everything, she stood up. She ran close and hugged him. She didn't know what she was doing or why she was doing that, but she didn't care about it. This feeling was unexplainable. She didn't know, and neither did he. He just hugged her back, still crying. And neither of them knew how much time had passed, but it was long. She felt like an eternity had passed, a calm and warm eternity. For him, it was just a moment very happy that he wanted it to last for eternity. But this wasn't the time or place for those kinds of emotions. They had to go back out of the barrier, back to the present. And the first to break this moment wasn't her, but him. He pulled himself back, and with an embarrassed expression, he apologized. I am sorry, Miss Nolan, but she just shook her head and answered in a happy, cracking voice. Don't worry, IW was the one to. And no, I'm sorry. He bowed his head, but because they were so close, it bumped into hers. Don't do that. I told Yu it was my fault. She took a step back and rubbed her head. Thank you. After a moment, he thanked her in a happy, quiet tone. Those were genuine words and the first thanks to ever come from the bottom of his heart. After that incident, she felt that and smiled warmly.
No.
Thank you. Thanks for telling me. She also thanked him. He opened up to her. Not anyone else but her. This meant a lot of things, and she understood everything. Everything that maybe even he didn't know about. Maybe he understood that, but he was still hesitant to accept those feelings. But she knew. She knew that it won't be too long before he was ready. For the world and for her. Okay, we should go and sleep. We will enter the forest zone tomorrow and my work will start, he suggested. He felt that he will have a good sleep after a long time.
Ok.
Sweet dreams, she happily said and walked toward a distant, large tent. Good night to you too. Saying that with a happy smile, he turned off the 3 barriers and walked toward his tent. Witching from the carriage, holding a cup of tea, the merchant leader Cody smiled brightly. Young Miss finally found someone. He was happy. It was one of his many wishes to see the cold and sharp young Miss being warm and happy like this. He smiled again and continued reading. Everyone, watch out from now on, someone shouted from the front. After hearing that, many people started chatting among themselves. Their voices were loud enough to be heard at the back. Looks like our job will start now. What do you think will be the first thing to appear here? Oh, scrape that. How do you think that guy will kill it? That guy? What are you talking about? See that guy in a blue robe? I bet he will jump at whatever pops out first. But, don't you think he's different from rumors? I thought he was quite normal. That's because there weren't any energy beasts until now. Once we enter the wild area, he will change entirely. His voice carried certainty, so no one argued on that statement. On the other hand, the person in question was in different thoughts. It seems there will be more dangerous monsters this time. I have to protect her at the back. Everything else can wait. The mana in the air was thick, perfect to attract the unknown beasts to that area. It was also a clear road ahead of us. Though he still had the urge to kill them, now that urge was different. He looked at the other side of where merchant leader Cody and his assistant were. And just when he turned around, his eyes unexpectedly met his. And, just when their eyes met, both of them turned their heads to the other side in embarrassment. The mood between them was a bit awkward after the night. Well, it was expected. It would be a bit strange if they acted as if nothing happened. Other than that, everything was good enough. Though people were talking about him, it was none of his business. And more than anything, it was about time for something to appear. Multiple rustling sounds came from different directions at a distance away. Everyone got on their guards, ready for any kind of fight. Some took out their swords, spears, and bows, and some prepared their spells. Then, a moment later, from the huge trees before us, some large black shadows jumped down in a group. With silver fur covering their body, standing on their back legs, creatures resembling monkeys appeared. Not only the front but also the right flank was blocked by them. A green magic circle appeared under my legs as soon as I spotted them. A small wind current passed in the surrounding. It was a Tier 3 spell, Detection Wind. 34. That's quite a lot. Well, it looks like they are just red-level beasts. These people can take care of them by themselves. They had the advantage, both in numbers and power. He can just leave them to others. He wasn't greedy for money anyways. The monkeys shouted and jumped forward. The monkey-like creatures were called steel-body chimpanzee, and they were weak against fire. Magicians in the group shot out their spells. I stood back and watched them fight without any problems. This confused them, but they continued with their attacks. Boom! Their bodies were like metal, so the clanking sound of metal rang in the surrounding. Spells collided with them and small explosions rang out in the surrounding. Just after 5 minutes of the fight, all of them died down. And, to everyone's surprise, the so-called bloodthirsty, red-eyed hunter didn't move an inch. He just stood there, protecting the carriage.
Ay,
What happened to him? He's acting weird today. Someone shouted in the middle of cleanup. See, I knew he was a decent person. He is just doing his job. No, you little. Have you ever seen him in the fields? Have you ever seen him take out those bodies from his storage device? Yes, they fill the floor with blood. You are new, so you don't know much. So, just shut up. Their voice was quite loud, so everyone in the quiet area heard them. They weren't the only ones confused by this situation. Others looked confused, but they didn't say anything. Again, the person in question just stood there quietly, guarding the carriage, or, more specifically, the one person he was protecting. Ok. We start moving. With the shout, everyone started walking forward. On their path, they faced many opponents. Large wolves with red fur, called dark fire wolves. Though they had more strength than the monkeys, their numbers weren't enough. They were taken out in less time than the previous ones. Next was a large group of acid slimes. Though they weren't even red energy beasts, their numbers were a lot. They were omnivorous creatures, so they even ate their own kind after their deaths. And to kill those slimes, I had to step forward when they reached for us. With a Tier 4 spell, Ice Needles, I destroyed their central nucleus. These slime bodies disintegrated when killed, so they were the most annoying ones. Just like that, many other creatures like wind snakes, dead mana spiders, blood mosquitoes, and much more. At night, some different creatures came out, but they too were wiped out in seconds. This trip was just like that. This didn't contain anything greater than yellow-ranked energy beasts. It was an easy kill for someone like me, but I was still worried. As we got closer to the lack, the monsters coming toward us increased many times. This was strange, as if they had run away from something. Their numbers were increasing at an unexplainable rate. He had to keep his guard up all the time from the midway point. His work increased as well. He always tried his best to protect the carriages and the people around them. He hunted those energy beasts, that was all. Seeing human blood wasn't something he was fond of. So, he protected everyone when the situation looked unlikely. It was nighttime right now, and they had set up a camp in an open area. Everyone had a tense atmosphere around them. The changes in the forest were unexpected variables for this safe trip. But, after today's accidents, everyone now had a more positive opinion of the man known as Red-Eyed Hunter. He saved many of their lives, and they were grateful for that. Asterisk. Brian? A sweet voice of a girl called him out from the back. Still his guard up, he looked back and replied in a serious voice. Miss Nolan, I don't think you should come out like this. There are many weird things going on. Looking at his serious eyes, she sighed. You should take some rest as well. Others can handle here for the time being. She was worried. Her voice also contained great emotions. He was on edge for quite some time now. Though only 2 days had passed in this forest, he didn't take any rest from the moment everything started to seem weird. He felt her concerns and replied with a small smile. It's okay, Miss Nolan. It's normal for me to not sleep for days. I will be fine. He was happy to see someone being concerned for him. He felt calm. Just hearing her voice now was everything to him. And that was enough. You should go in. I will be fine. Really. His voice contained confidence and his eyes had warmth. She understood it and nodded. If you say so, take care of yourself. She gave him a small smile and turned around. He looked at her departing figure and smiled slowly. And then, everyone in the area heard an ear-perching noise that filled their hearts with fear. In the open area surrounded by trees, many people were looking at the faraway sky with wide-open eyes. Their eyes contained disgust and fear as some of them fell to the ground. With utter silence shrouding the entire forest, only some voices could be heard. The sound of wood crackling in the fire was the loudest in the area. After that was a silent, creepy wind, as if flowing from the front, as if being dragged by a large presence, as if a large creature was flattering its wings. Because of the loud screams, everyone was frozen on the spot they were standing. With cold sweat flowing on their backs, everyone's faces turned ashen. This wasn't something they had ever imagined encountering in this lace forest. They had never thought something like that would be here. After a moment the sound vanished. Someone spoke in an almost inaudible voice, which everyone heard very clearly. "To the demonic birds." Everyone had their blood run cold. Never in their life they had thought to encounter a demonic creature in a peaceful place like this. But one person had the most intense reaction to this. The person is called Red-Eyed Hunter. The intense blood lust was oozing out of his body, so intense that people had fallen down on their knees around him. This was the true hunter that everyone feared, the one that everyone looked up to for his unreal achievements. A person who had made the vow to kill any demon he encountered. Fight it with all his might even if he were to lose. A fight to the death. A fight against the very beings that took away everything from him. From his parents to his brother. The hatred he had towards them was something he could never forget. But he stopped himself when he felt a warm, small hand, holding his cold and almost blooded hand. And then he remembered. He remembered every single moment he had to spend with this person. Every single moment changed him. The person that pulled him out of his cage. He came back to his senses and looked around. People were gasping for a breath, and some with weak mental fortitude had almost passed out from their unconscious blood lust. He turned around and met her eyes. Though she was okay, her face was slightly pale. Sweat slowly formed around her neck and forehead. But she held his hand, tightly and gently. His expression turned into that of horror. He had done something he had never wanted. He had hurt the very person he wanted to protect so badly. "Miss Nolan." He grabbed her almost falling body and quickly ran towards their carriage. Closing the door shut, he slowly helped her to sit down on the seat. The merchant leader had already grasped the situation and left the carriage, leaving both of them alone. "I'm fine. Don't worry. This much was nothing," she smiled. It really looked like she was all right, totally different from a moment ago. She tapped on her large purple bracelet with a golden jewel, and a glass bottle appeared in her hand. It was something he was very familiar with, a basic healing potion. She gulped it in one breath and slowly stood up straight. With a refreshed smile, she looked back at him. "Don't worry about me, and let's think about what we should do about this situation." She was calm. She had also heard those voices a moment ago, and she knew very well what they meant. He was surprised, but there wasn't time to be surprised about these things. The matter at hand was more important than anything. Those voices from ahead were definitely something he had encountered in the past. Demonic fowl. Their presence alone was a bad omen for everything around them. They were the strongest among non-noble demonic creatures. And the most terrifying thing about them was definitely their numbers. From as low as 12 to as great as 60. They were a small disaster. And now, that disaster was before us. And as one of the strongest individuals, he had to make a very important decision. He fell into deep thought, putting his personal grudge against them aside. And after some time, he looked at her and said with a serious expression, "I will fight. Everyone else should get back to safety. If needed, all strong individuals from 6 teams should take the lead in this fight." His decision was firm and logical to some extent. But he was also saying her to get back without him. This wasn't something any of them wanted, but they understood each other's thinking. She looked into his eyes with a very serious look. "I will go with you. And you can't stop me." She had resolve in her eyes. She had already made her decision, and he knew. He didn't have a say in this matter. And he knew something like this was going to happen. A defeated sigh escaped his mouth as he replied in an exhausted voice. "Just stay by my side." She nodded with a smile across her face. They left the carriage and shouted while standing in the middle of the camp. "Everyone, listen." Every single person in all 6 groups turned and towered to him with a hopeful expression. After a moment, everyone gathered around the center and looked up at him. He closed his eyes for a moment and slowly opened them. He used voice amplification, Tier 2, spell, and started speaking. As we all mostly know the dangers ahead of us, only the stronger individuals should stay. Everyone else should march back for the time being. I believe we could take those Veil creatures down if we combine all the strength. With those words, everyone understood one thing. They weren't going to run away like cowards from those disgusting evil beasts. They could really defeat them with their combined strength. Though some were afraid, most of them had an excited look on their face. They were going to fight. They were going to fight those demonic birds with all their might. A fight that would not go as easy as they initially thought. In the quiet forest, the sound of people walking down the narrow road was the only noticeable sound. With 4 people with giant shields in the front, and 3 with the sword and spears behind them. 2 people with mage robes behind them, and at last 1 lady with 2 different people. The lady had a normal brown-green dress with a normal look, and the 2 people with her were protecting her. One was a mage with a blue robe and white mask, and the other was someone unexpected. The merchant leader of the 5th team, Sir Cody. They knew that he was a good, rank 3, swordsman, but they didn't expect him to join them too. The weirdest thing was that they both were protecting this unknown lady who didn't seem any special. They didn't even know why she was going with them to such a dangerous place. But none of them argued about that. The 2-person behind them were strong, so they didn't have to worry about their backs as they traveled through the forest. As they walked forward towards the lake, the plants around them started to turn black, and they seemed to release some black smoke. The mages in the back cast some different protection spells as they marched forward. Everyone also drank some potions. The sky was turning dark and the wind was getting creepy. And after walking for just another 3 minutes, everyone heard a strong voice from the back. "Get ready. There are 3 coming from the front." The voice carried strange charisma as well as intimidation. Everyone strengthened their backs and assembled into the positions. This was an instinctive response, as if they were following their leader's order unconditionally. Some of them knew this voice and understood everything. Authority, a special power that only a few select individuals held throughout the continent. It was something one would be born with. Unlike mana or aura or any other energy, this power was somewhat like an absolute order. One had to follow it if they didn't have high enough mental fortitude to resist. And one with such power was considered best at leading a group in fights. The normal-looking girl with them was definitely not normal. To have such power, no one would believe it was from someone who seemed so normal. And as ordered from the back, 3 black figures flew towards them from the front. Tearing the leaves and branches, they came and sat on a tree branch before them. As if mocking, they stared at them with somewhat smirking under their large curved beaks. With black bodies which seemed to be covered in black armor, they looked down on them with their blood-red eyes. Long beak and sharp talons, sharp enough to tear apart an armor. There was one common expression on everyone's face, and it was naturally disgust. They were sore to the eyes. Just a look at them was enough to send a frown on everyone's face. "Everyone, pay attention." With those few words, everyone's mind cleared up and a serious look spread on their faces. With a sharp scream, the birds dove towards them. The shield man held their ground firmly, and at the same time, some spells of different colors flew toward them. They were Tier 2 and Tier 3 enhancement spells. Clank, clank, clank. The fight started with loud collusion. 2 sounds of metal clashing echoed in the silent forest. They fought with their swords and spears. Some arrows struck them from behind. The fight continued for 10 minutes. They were tough opponents, but they didn't have as much stamina or demonic energy as their opponents. With spears and swords piercing their tough armor-like skin, black blood splashed in the surrounding. The mages preserved their mana for the following fights, which they knew were going to be tough. With their last painful cry, they dropped to the ground. Black blood was splashed out everywhere around them. The hideous corpse of demonic birds definitely wasn't an eye-pleasing sight. "We should store the corpses." The familiar female voice spoke from behind them. The suggestion was definitely normal, but there was clear hesitation on everyone's faces. She looked at them and suggested after a small sigh, "I have a spare storage device, don't worry." The corpses of these demonic creatures were something that polluted everything around them. It was even true inside the storage spaces. They could affect the things inside if not careful. Considering the prices of even the most normal storage devices, not many could afford two at the same time. They were happy that they had her with them, as well as ashamed that they looked down on her at the beginning. The corpses of these demonic creatures can be sold to different churches or could be purified by them. The divine energy could purify the remaining negative energy, and the corpses could be used as materials. The price is always good when it comes to the demonic beasts, so it was certain that they were going to make good money from this. She taped on her wrist, and a beautiful large purple bracelet with a golden gem became visible. Everyone present had their eyes wide open at this sight. This bracelet wasn't a storage device. Everyone here knew this thing's value, and a greedy look instantly flashed in their eyes. But it vanished in an instant. Just beside her, they saw the red, glowing eyes. The concentrated blood lust on them sends shivers down their spine. They turned their heads away in unison, not daring to even think about that again. She saw all this and rolled her eyes in exhaustion. It was understandable. This bracelet wasn't a storage device but an artifact, and it was special to her. Sighing again, she tapped on the gem on it twice, and a black cube with a red pattern appeared on her hand. She threw the storage device with a very large capacity toward one of the mages in the front. Stunned, he barely managed to catch it. The thing that he just caught could pay for everything they needed for at least 1 month. "Let's finish this quickly and go home," she cheerfully said without any worry in her tone. Now, everyone here knew. The person in front of them was anything but an ordinary girl. There was no way in hell that she could be a commoner or a simple merchant's assistant. Another cold shiver ran down their back, and they started to clean up the place. On the other hand, the person with a white mask and red eyes gazing out of them sighed. Thank God. She knows how to control herself so well. Things could have gotten difficult just now. He had spent enough time with her to know her very well. He even knew about the artifact to some extent as well. If she wanted, any of them could have died in total silence without knowing anything. He already knew she was scary, and that was the very thing he liked the most. She was strong on her own and cold. He had seen the coldness, and he knew, in some circumstances, maybe even he could lose to her. Not that he had ever won. They had done everything she liked, and they had fun doing everything together. He even knew that she wanted more from him, but she knew how to control her emotions. "Ay, Brian. Let's go." He felt a warm touch on his hand as he came back to reality. As he looked around, everything was cleaned up and the corpses were stored away. "Be careful," he said and walked forward. She smiled warmly and walked forward. A dark, stormy sky. A large lake with swamp-like dark green water. Black trees without leaves. Corpses of different beasts cover the ground. Ash-white ground painted in black, red, and green. Large, disgusting birds flying in the stormy sky. Bright red lightning falling from the weird storm in the sky. Some people walked in this beautiful area with different expressions. Fear, shock, disgust, anger, and helplessness. They looked up in the sky, or more specifically towards the folk of large birds. There were easily 15 monsters, but they weren't the source of fear. They had killed a total of 12 such monsters on their way here, but this was different. With a 3 times larger body than others, it flew highest. Almost at the eye of the storm, with its black wings covering the sky. Sharp beak, long pointed talons, black armored skin, and metallic black feathers covering its body. It looked down on the small bug-like humans with keen purple eyes. And one human with the red eyes looked up straight at it in the eye. Just as we exited the dark forest and reached the shore of the previously known lake, we were stunned by the sight before us. Not just the sight before us was horrible, but the sky was more terrible than that. I looked at the largest bird in the group straight in the eye as anger flashed in my eyes. It was a night hawk, the lowest-ranking noble among demonic creatures. Now I understood why other beasts were running away from here. And the reason these small birds were here was also because of this fellow. Its sharp purple eyes filled with greed met my bloodshot red eyes. It was laughing and looking down at us as mere food to fill its stomach. I glanced back at it, and its eyes sharpened. But this food was more delicious for it because it was weak and, most importantly, it was looking at me. A big chunk of notorious meat filled with manna. A very good amount of manna. But it was gravely wrong. I looked at it and a playful grin spread on my face. This was a boss battle, and now, the boss was going to return to Earth for its insolence. I looked around and found everyone in front of me petrified. They had a pale complexion as if they were going to die a miserable death. This was pathetic at this point. They didn't trust me enough to stay strong. I looked to my side only to meet her eyes locking with mine. With her eyes, she asked, "Will you be fine?" At that, I smiled with amazement. She already knew I was going to fight that cheeky bird in the sky alone. It wasn't something big if I had to say. It was only a knight. I could take on 2 of them if I went all out. But this lowly fat bird didn't know what it had gotten itself into. I slowly held her soft, rough hand and nodded without hesitation. With my eyes, I said, "Piece of cake." She smiled and a small sigh escaped her mouth as she shouted, "Everyone, we will take out small ones. Leave the fat bird to Brian." My heart skipped a beat when she called it fat bird. And just with those words, everyone came back to their senses. As if possessed, they spread out and took their position in unison. I walked to the other side of the lake as the fat bird screamed as if to signal the start of the fight. On one side, the clashing of metal was ringing. Boom! Some explosions rang out and struck the birds in the sky. The fight with the small birds was slow and lethal under her command. Mages were using every bit of mana they had saved in previous battles. Miss Nolan was throwing many different potions at them from time to time. They knew very well just how expensive these potions were, so the respect in their eyes grew even more. Their fight was quick and it looked like they would be okay. So I turned my attention to the fat bird before me. Small sparks of purple lightning were flickering around its body, just like any other noble demonic creature had. This dark thunder was a special ability of this demonic knight, and lightning was weak against ice in terms of elementals. A big smile spread out on my mouth under my mask. This was going to be fun. I flicked my finger and a pure white wand appeared on my palm. Pointing it towards the bird, I slowly said, "Ice needles." Hundreds of small sharp needles of ice shot towards it at a very fast speed. It screamed again and a purple shield appeared before it. Though the needles were small, they could definitely pass through its shield. The opposite effect of the elements was applied here, and the bird somewhat knew what was happening. Changing its tactics, it flew upwards. High up in the sky, looking down, it somewhat smirked. Spreading its wings widely, it flapped it in my direction. Many black feathers with purple lightning covering it shot at a rapid speed. The arrow-like big feathers closed on me and my eyes widened in surprise. Ice wall. I quickly created 3 different ice walls around me and quickly backed down using backstep. Though the ice wall was a tier 3 spell, using the physical type skill like backstep was easy. There wasn't much burden on my mind. The feathers collided with the icy walls, but they couldn't pass through them. With a deep sigh, I looked up at it. These feathers could have been dangerous just now. From the way I was draining my mana, I thought it wouldn't be long before it was drained. The bird stopped in the air as if tired. This was my chance. I took another step back and took some potions out of my item box. Gulping the green and blue potions in one breath, I looked at my other side. The fight was about to end for them, and if this fat bird decided to go after them, it would be more dangerous. The chance I had was enough to end this fight on my side. "Hey, fat bird." I heard the voice filled with authority, and I knew this was my chance. The bird looked at the other side without knowing itself. I gathered a large amount of mana and pointed my wand at it with a bright smile. "Goodbye, fat bird." Icy blue mana burst out from the tip of my wand. Ice Javelin. One of my strongest attack type skills was one that was ranked yellow. In total, I had 5 skills. The strongest skill I had was green, ranked, but it wasn't appropriate for the fight right now. 6 large spears of ice manifested and shot forward at the confused bird. Just as the spicks of ice were about to touch it, its focus returned and it created a shield with all of its lightning. Boom! The sky shook and shockwaves spread out in the surrounding. The bird managed to block 3 of the 6 arrows, but it screamed in agony as the 3 remaining javelins stuck it. One pierced its tough wings on the right, one pierced its neck, and the last one pierced its main body. Black blood sprayed out of those wounds, showering across the whole lake. The once beautiful lake was now painted in disgusting green and black. But that wasn't important right now. I ran towards the other side, towards her. Using this power on such a strong enemy wasn't something she could have handled after that much fight before. She overexerted herself this time. For her, everything would be spinning right now. This was normal, but I couldn't see her like that. Miss Nolan. I reached them and stood beside her. She was already dizzy as she fell on my shoulder. Holding her, I took out some potions and slowly poured them into her mouth. I sat down with her as I requested the others. Can you all give us some time? You can go back and call others. Everything here is done. The sky was slowly clearing up. Now that the boss fat bird was dead, there was no threat left. I had already taken out its core, so it was truly dead. Only the area was still polluted by the demonic energy. Well, light potions could help in that matter. Everyone understood and walked back with a grateful smile, leaving the 2 of us alone. As there was no one left, I looked around us. I still didn't like this heinous-looking place.